They sneak, they push, and they score! Touchdown!
No more pushing the tush, Tolos, Diesel, or should the pushing of the tush continue? That is the question to start the show today. He's Diesel, I'm Cole Bryson, and you are the Tolos. Already 17 of you on the stream. Austin on Twitter, on X, is already in the chat giving his opinion, and you can do the same in the chat on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. You can also text or call the show at 844-326-3663. That's 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Diesel, we briefly touched on this yesterday, but let's dive right back into it. No pun intended there. Dive into the rear. Should the tush push be banned? You brought up in the Daily Wires yesterday that there was one anonymous team. They were anonymous. It's the Packers. They suck. There was one anonymous team that has tried to file a suit to get this thing banned in the NFL, to make it illegal. And that is where we're starting the show so that our Tolos know where you and I stand on this. Diesel, you think the tush push should be
banned? It should be outlawed from the NFL because, Cole, there's not really an analogous defense that can stop it. I mean, essentially, Cole, you're telling me that you're allowed to get ahead of steam and then be assisted by another player to gain additional yardage. This is not a discussion when it comes to how much yardage the player actually gained, where forward momentum was stopped. This is where you can essentially artificially put as many guys back there as you can. I mean, what's to stop a running back or a quarterback from taking the sneak and then having his running back behind him, a halfback or another backer behind him, and then having both of the guards pull and push from behind? I mean, it's an unstoppable play, essentially, Cole.
It's unstoppable for 31 teams in the NFL. So you say
the Eagles do it. They call it the brotherly shove, but the Bills do it quite a bit. We've seen the Chiefs do it. A lot of teams are doing it, and they're doing it because it's an unstoppable play.
However, it's not unstoppable because in the AFC Championship game, the Buffalo Bills tried this 5 times, and it worked once. What did the Chiefs do 4 out of 5 times, Diesel? They stopped it. The Chiefs had a fantastic game plan. The Chiefs came in to the AFC Championship game with a game plan of, we're not going to let the quarterback sneak, the tush push, whatever you want to call it. We're not going to let this thing work. My opinion, it's weak. It's weak to ban something because one team is great at it. The Eagles are the only team that are really good at it, Diesel. I talked about the AFC Championship game. The Chiefs stopped it 4 times. If you ban this, man, you're banning it because what? One team's better at it than the other team? That's football. That's soft. That's weak. The Eagles have a technique that no one can stop. Figure out how to fix it or stop it like the Chiefs did against the Bills. We don't ban the Statue of Liberty. We don't ban the flea flicker, the Philly special. Those aren't football plays. We don't ban those. Teams figure out how to stop them. Diesel, I know the goal of the NFL is probably to make the game more entertaining. And if that's the goal, I understand it. Because what have they done in the past? They've changed things to make the game more entertaining, right? The PATs, they moved them back in 2015. 2024, they moved the kickoff back and changed the kickoff rule to make the game to where you don't have as many touchbacks. The NFL has shown that their track record is to make the game more entertaining. So from that aspect, I understand it. But my thing is, man, if you don't like it, figure out how to stop it.
JD says it's a bullcrap play and needs to be gone. Cole, look, if teams could stop it 100% of the time and it was effective 0% of the time, teams would stop doing it, right? But it just doesn't it feel cheap doesn't it feel like beating your little brother at Mortal Kombat just by sweeping the leg over and over and over and over again because you figured out the exact right rhythm to hit, like, down and kick, so that you never let him get up and you never let him actually fight. It feels cheap. It feels bad. I don't really know what else to say, man. It's a crap play, and it's time to take it out of the game.
JD, why do you think it's a bull crap play and needs to be gone? I appreciate your text, but elaborate, if you will. Text line blowing up, 844-326-3663. Phone lines are wide open. Tolos, get in. Let's start the show with a little interaction on the phone lines as well on the Tush Push. The stream already rolling. Kane giving his thoughts. James on YouTube as well. Austin says, I'm going to say no. If a quarterback big enough to do it, he's taking chances of getting hurt, but it's part of the game. Austin, good stuff there. Wesley Roberts in the stream. James says, go Birds. James on the YouTube, if it was truly unstoppable, they could just run 99 quarterback sneaks for a touchdown.
Well, no, because it's designed to gain 1 yard. If you just ran it 99 times, you'd have a lot of 3-and-outs because teams would run it for a yard and they would get stopped. Run it for a yard, get stopped. Run it for a yard, get stopped, and punt.
So what about this? And I have some other reasonings why I don't think it should be banned, but if I have to meet you at the 50-yard line, Diesel, and meet in the middle, right, like the old song, what about on the goal line, the 2-yard line, and in, you can't use the tush push? From the 2-yard line and in, you can't do it. Anywhere else in the middle of the field, fine. But the 2-yard and in, we want to see fade patterns to the corner of the end zone. We want to see running backs get the football. We want to see exciting touchdown plays. If you convinced me, maybe if you gave me that and said from the 2-yard line in, I might meet you in the middle there. Tolos, phone lines are open. JD starting things off, 844-326-3663. JD, why do you think this is a crap play?
Well, to be quite honest, first of all, thanks for taking my call.
Yep.
Second of all, the reason I think it's bullcrap is because do y'all guys not remember the Notre Dame USC game? I think it was 2004, 2005 season where Reggie Bush pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone and a flag was thrown on the play because you can't aid the runner in helping him gain more yards. So that's why it's crap.
Aiding, here's the rule, though. Here's the rule. Aiding the runner is when you assist the runner from the front side of the runner. That's the rule.
No, well, they got Reggie Bush for pushing Matt Leinart from the backside.
Okay.
Yes. So
Reggie
here's
Bush was behind him, and he pushed Matt Leinart into the end zone. And so, they need to either clarify the rule or they need to get rid of the tush push. Would be my opinion on that.
So the rule states that it prohibits offensive players from pulling or carrying the ball carrier. Now, depends on exactly how much you want to diagnose the play. And if you could say that the player behind doing the pushing is less than halfway down a player's center of gravity, which by definition, calling it the tush push means you're pushing him from their gluteus maximus. You are now on the lower half of that person's center of gravity, in which case you are, in theory, lifting that player and pushing them forward. You're not pushing them down by their butt. You're pushing them up and forward by their butt.
The play's not going up, though. The play, everybody's going down. And I'm watching that you talking about USC Notre Dame? Is that what you were talking about, JD?
The Bush push.
Surely. Guess what they use? The bottom underneath the gluteus maximus, as Colt or Diesel just said. So, I mean, just clarify the rule, or you know what? Give all of the football teams all of these rugby consultants, because that's where Philadelphia went and got this, and it's also unstoppable because Jalen Hurts can squat 600 pounds.
But it's not unstoppable because Kansas City stopped it 4 out of 5 times in the AFC Championship.
It's unstoppable for the Eagles. Don't play with me. The Eagles ran it 18 times against the Commanders. And funny enough, I'm sure you guys will mention this. Whenever they said that there was an anonymous team that wanted to ban the tush push, I thought it was going to be the Commanders. I had no idea that it was going to come out. It was the Green Bay Packers. Like, I don't know if I'm good with them banning the play per se, but it's a bullcrap play. Either they got to figure something out, though, my opinion.
What about what I said, meeting in the middle and saying you can't do it from the 2-yard line and in?
I don't like any rule that is applied on certain downs but not all downs, so that you add levels of complexity and if-then scenarios. I don't like that, Cole.
Well, it's not a down, it's the yard line.
How many times are the Eagles actually using this play to score touchdowns? They're using it to get first downs. They're not usually – I mean, every once in a while, yeah, they use it down close to the end zone. But for the most part –
there were 27 touchdown plays, JD, off of this in the last 2 years.
Well, even then, I can't ban half the time and not the full time.
God, this is the Charmin society we live in.
But the way you're describing it, Cole, you know that it's a cheap-ass play.
No,
you know that it's
a
B-word maneuver. You know it is. You got that little smirk on your face. You're like,
a quarterback sneak is a BS play?
It's not a quarterback sneak, though.
Oh, my
gosh. You're aiding the runner
No,
with another runner.
the runner
I know what the rule states. I just read the rule out loud. But you're still – come on, Colton, what are you doing? Are you trying to give him a massage? So that's aiding him.
No.
Are you trying to give him a massage? You trying to make sure he doesn't cramp up in the middle of a play? You're assisting the runner. You're aiding the runner.
By rule, he's not. Am I right or wrong?
Hey, well, Cole, I'll leave you with this one. How about this? Cole? The refs are bad enough as it is. Do you really want to add one more thing to their plate that they got to keep track of when and when they can't run the tush push?
That might be the best argument we've heard all show.
I say the way it is now is perfectly fine. I'm smiling saying it. I didn't know me smiling was me believing it was
You're
BS.
Smirking. It's not a smile,
okay.
It's a smirk.
How about this? I don't think the tush push should be banned. I think the tush push is a perfectly legal play. Is that bad? The tush push, look, the Eagles have a technique.
So what you were doing, Cole, you just assisted your face in not smiling.
No, I didn't pull it from the
holding
front.
down, but you pulled down at the cheeks.
I didn't do it. If the goal of the NFL is to make the game more exciting, I get it. But what's the goal? Kickoffs, PATs have been adjusted. Now, if you told me, Diesel, that running backs are upset because they're missing out on touchdowns, I'd believe it. If running backs went to the committees that are ran by the players, whatever they're called, that report to the NFL, if running backs across the league in the NFC, the Buffalo, Philadelphia, and said, hey, we're upset because we're missing out on touchdowns. Saquon Barkley had a Hall of Fame year this year. Now, how many touchdowns do you think Saquon Barkley missed out on? Probably several, right? I would argue 6 to 8, maybe 10. Because they ran the tush push. So if you said, hey, the running backs are the ones that are upset about it, I get it. The origins of the tush push go back to 2018 when Minnesota Vikings linebacker Anthony Barr suggested doing it while he was wearing a NFL Films wire. There were 27 touchdowns off that play in the last 2 years, like I said. I think it comes back to a Charmin society. We're soft, and when something's done well, our solution's to ban it. That's where we are in our world. It's not working. We can't stop it, so we're going to ban it. Now, what are the Tolos saying? Several texts. Diesel, do you want to take the text line or the stream? Because they're both blowing up right now.
I will take the stream.
Okay.
So I'll scroll back a little bit, trying to catch as many of these as we can, guys. Let's see here. Ones that we haven't already gotten to. Kane, P1 Armada Elitist says, the Packers are extremely soft. It's a play of less than a yard. Teams can prevent the play by keeping opponents from getting close. But did the Commanders not stop the tush push in the NFC Championship? James said, darn, they'll just have to use their 2,000-yard running back. Let's
Pretty good
see
point.
here.
I like that.
Let's see. Kane says you can ban someone spam sweeping the leg. You just have to work on it. He's going back to the Mortal Kombat reference earlier. Let's see here. James also laughed at JD saying it's only unstoppable when Philly does it because they got a quarterback that can squat 600 pounds. Let's see. It's a team sport. Everyone is working together to get someone in the end zone. Pushing someone in is perfectly fine. Plus, everyone can do it.
Is that Kane you said?
That one was Kane, yes.
Kane. I think that the only way you could get it banned, Diesel, and I'll go to the text line in a second for you Tolos who have texted in. The phone lines are still open as well. The only way I'm fine with banning it is if you do what I said and change the rule of what aiding a runner is. If you change the rule of what aiding a runner is, then you'd have to ban it. Because if you said if you're helping the runner in any way, it's aiding the runner, right?
Cole, is it the movie Dirty Dancing when like Patrick Swayze lifts the girl up in the air and she kind of does the little swan move? Could we not do that with guys trying to block field goals? Because if you're lifting someone up, Cole,
I'm going to disappoint you.
If you're pushing, I know you haven't seen it. I know the answer to that question before I even do it, but I'm not going to stop referencing it because all of our Tolos understand what I'm saying. Okay. You're the only one who doesn't. Why can't we lift and raise somebody up to block a PAT or to block a field goal then? You know, if we're not going to ban pushing players around, let's just unban all forms of pushing players around. How about that? You know, if we want to make this even and equal across the league, anytime you push someone, it's not a foul.
I say if you don't like it, stop it. What do the Tolos on the text line say? 419, the tush push is fine if you're a freaking rugby fan. For football, it's not the way the game is played. Get rid of it. So 419 agrees with you. I saw JD's. Let me see what else comes through here. It's only unstoppable because Hurts can squat 600. Cadillac says Buffalo calls it Bildo. I don't even know. Is that true? I mean, I don't know where you're going with that. Texter from the 431. Back in the day when they started pushed the ball carrier, it was blown dead instantly. Why did it change to allow it? Tiger Pal Rachel says play defense and quit crying about this. It's the NFL or Pop Warner. Is it the NFL or Pop Warner? You tell them, Tiger Pal Rachel. Quit crying about it and stop it, right? Texter from the 809 says rugby has the tush push, not football. Dewey on the text line. The tush push is cheating and is a travesty to the game.
So rugby, Cole, is an international sport. You know, it's super popular in Australia, in New Zealand, all over the world. What you're trying to say, Cole, and what I'm saying right here, right now, is those of you who want to keep the tush push are un-American. It is an un-American play. It is, by definition, a foreign play, and you're saying you back foreigners over Americans.
Yes, we do. Because French fries are amazing and they came from France, right? Supposedly.
They're French cut.
No, they're
French cut potatoes.
They're from France.
No,
That's where
they're
they came
French
from.
cut potatoes,
hey, real quick,
you dolt.
Listen to this. Dr. Neil, do you know who Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson?
No, you don't know who he is because it's name? Neil deGrasse Tyson.
deGrasse, okay.
And there's a promo running with Neil deGrasse Tyson's name in it like every day on the Rob Brown Show.
Is there really?
Yeah.
I should know that.
It's the one where Lonzo starts picking at Rob, saying Neil deGrasse Tyson never played football, so his opinion doesn't matter.
Okay, so Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
It's you invoking someone's name.
Why aren't we giving his full name here? Why can't we just say Dr. Tyson?
Because it's his brand, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Have you heard this?
Yeah. Do you know who Doogie Howser is? You know,
I do not know.
You wouldn't call him Neil Harris. He's Neil Patrick Harris.
Okay, Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson explains the tush push. Have you heard this explanation, by the way?
I have not.
This is fascinating. I mean, it really is. I don't know if he's BSing us or if he's telling the truth, but it sounds fascinating.
In momentum transfer, okay? So the Eagles are already in motion. They are using Earth as a launch point for their movement. In fact, if you run the math on this, every time the Eagle runs this play, it slightly changes the rotation of the Earth.
God.
Tell me more. Tell me more. Are you kidding me?
I'm just telling you.
Tell me more.
Do you believe that? I mean, are we there now?
By the way, I want to change the name from Wire to Launch Point because that's an awesome name for a show.
Dr. Neil deGrasse.
Am I buying it? No.
I mean, it's changed. All right, here's more.
The Eagles have the advantage because they're hiking. And no one on the Chiefs can move until after the Eagles move.
Well, no
so
crap,
the Eagles
that's
get
football.
Like a quarter-second head start in momentum transfer, okay? So the Eagles are already in motion. They are using Earth as a launch point for their movement. In fact,
I can't with him, man. He is so serious. He's acting like he's just like uncovering these.
It's funny. You know, our promo says, you know, work a 9-to-5 job, you think you know better than coaches and players making 100 times your salary. Kane says, is golf un-American? Yeah, golf is un-American because golf is Scottish. It's a Scottish game. It was invented in Scotland. It's a Scottish game. He also says he did not run the math on this. Well, Kane, he is literally an astrophysicist, and he understands that any action has an equal and opposite reaction. It means whenever something presses against the Earth, you're not the only one that moves, even though it's minute and microscopic. The Earth does move just a smidge, tiny little bit, but it's negligible. It doesn't actually mean anything.
So that was Kyle Brandt and Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. JD on the YouTube stream says force equals mass times acceleration. So Tyson is kind of right. This screams unfair advantage to me. It's unfair because they're using the Earth to their advantage. They should play on a different surface, JD. That's what they should do. They should find a different surface to play on. But if the Earth is flat, to you flat earthers, how does that happen? How do you use the Earth to your advantage? I thought the Earth was flat. Right? The guy in the Eagles bathroom told us a couple of weeks ago. Remember that?
Oh, my God. We never talked about that on the radio. You and I both went to the restroom at the same time, not on purpose, by the way. We went to the restroom, and we were chatting about whatever. I don't even remember what it was.
It was flat Earth. It was somebody dumb.
We got on the topic of flat Earth, and a guy who was just in the bathroom doing his nasties comes out of the stall and starts talking about why he believes that flat Earth is real.
But he also brought up something else too. Remember?
Oh, as soon as he started talking,
remember he was talking about the oil that goes to the center.
He's talking about how far we can dig to the center of the Earth and why we don't hit like molten magma if we drill down to a certain point.
That was a weird.
Such a strange.
So the rugby play that. By the way, I don't know. Did it really come from rugby? Let me Google that during the commercial break to see. I don't know. I don't watch. Do you watch rugby? Have you ever watched rugby?
I've tried. I don't understand the rules at all.
I have never watched rugby. And last thing I'll say before we run. I know we got to run. I also last night watched a sport that I've never watched before in person. I watched my first high school lacrosse game. Are you proud of me? I'm getting more well-versed. Have you watched lacrosse before?
A little bit, yeah.
So a friend of mine's son plays. It was Boiling Springs, Greenville, high school lacrosse. High school lacrosse, Diesel, do you know which sport? This is going to blow your mind. The sport of lacrosse, to me, is most similar to what sport?
I'm going to guess you're going to say hockey.
No, basketball. Watching it last night, it's like a lot of the rules and everything that I watched last night, it's so similar to basketball. It blew my mind.
So to your point, I just Googled Tush Push origins in rugby. It says the tush push, a football play where offensive players push the quarterback forward, has rugby-inspired techniques. The play is similar to a rugby scrum or maul, where players push together to move the ball forward. Eagles offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland was advised by Scottish rugby coach Richie Gray on how to improve the play. Boom goes the dynamite. It is a rugby play taught to an American football coach.
I think they're smart Americans.
By a rugby coach. It's a foreign play, Cole.
Get rid of it because it's foreign.
Yeah.
Get rid of the foreigners and their plays. Oh, my God.
Put up a wall for the play. When we come back, and that is the only way to stop it, by the way, a wall of bodies. When we come back, I want to know from you, Cole. I want to know from you, Tolos. Let's keep the interaction going on the show. Where were you when your team's biggest sports moment happened? And I mean literally, where were you when that happened? We'll talk about that next. 97.7 FM in Greenville, 97.1 FM in Spartanburg, and everywhere you are on the free Odyssey app. fact, Cole, on this show, we always call out the illegal and cheap plays. For example, in the commercial break, we were talking about the movie Karate Kid and the fact that Daniel LaRusso legally lost the fight at the end of Karate Kid because he had a kick to the face that was not allowed in the All Valley Karate Tournament. However, he somehow beats Johnny by kicking him in the face. Make it make
Scripted.
sense. That's
WWE.
why, well, it's a movie. So, yeah, there's absolutely a script. Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. God, we appreciate you, Tolos, jumping in and interacting, being such a huge part of that first segment of the show. It's always awesome to shoot out of a cannon to start the show here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We're going to ask you to keep it going in this one, Cole, because, we're kind of entering a slow part of sports. There's not a ton going on. Sure, yeah, there's college basketball happening. There's NBA, but Tolos have told us again and again and again, you don't really care that much about college basketball until the tournament happens. You don't care at all about the NBA, even throughout the playoffs. And I know that chaps you because you love the NBA, but hey,
bunch of losers.
We listen to the people. The people tell us what they want, and that's what we talk about here, Cole. So I want to go a little bit down memory lane here for just a minute. 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. I want you to think back to your team or teams and tell me where you were, like the exact place you were when your team's biggest sports moments happened. Like that thing, you remember exactly where you were, right? It takes you right back to who you were with, where you were, what you were eating at the time, who you were around, all those sort of things. And I want to hear from you fans, you Tolos, 844-326-3663. Cole, I got 3 moments for you that I can think back to that I was alive for. I think back, obviously, to App State beating Michigan. I was in Michigan Stadium, Section 10, about 25 rows from the top, which put me about 250 yards from the field. I was forever away from the field. I was not in what you would call sober state of mind at the time. I was 20 years old going to a football game in a different state. Of course, I'm going to be hammered drunk for this thing. So that's where I was when App State got their big win over Michigan that put the football team on the map. Tolo's getting in on the chat and the stream for this already. Brian Pettit is a huge Cubs fan. He says he was at home in 2016 when the Cubs won it all. He said he was also at home when Clemson won it all in 2016. He's a big-time Clemson Tiger fan, too.
Who was that, Brian Pettit?
That was Brian Pettit.
Well, it's kind of tough for you to ask me this about my Cowboys because,
they haven't done anything.
Would be not alive.
In your lifetime.
I wasn't alive.
What would you say the biggest moment of the Cowboys in your waking and coherent lifetime? You can't count it. Something happened when you were like 3. So what's the biggest thing that's happened for the Cowboys since you've been alive and aware of football?
Well, we haven't been to an NFC championship game.
NA? Is that the answer?
Probably when they beat the Seahawks in the first round in 2018. I was there for that one, and it was a pretty big game. I mean, it was I think they lost the next week to San Francisco or somebody like that. But it was it's tough. Dallas has sucked in my lifetime. I mean, no other way to put it. They've sucked in my lifetime. The Braves, though, 2021 World Series championship, we had a watch party at Topgolf right here in Greenville. So watch the Braves win it right here at Topgolf. That was a lot of fun. Man, that was a cool night. A cool night winning the World Series just a few years ago. It seems like it was just yesterday in a way, but the Dallas Cowboys haven't given me much to cheer about in my 28 years.
A lot of comments on this topic. We will get back to it here in one moment as we go to the phone lines and kind of wrap up the previous segment. Tush push, should it be banned or not? Paul has something to say about the tush push. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Yes, thank you for going back. I appreciate it. I know that was a little rude, but I just want you guys to explain to me in a 1 yard or half a yard situation, what's the difference between that and a quarterback sneak? I don't need to stay on the line. I just want you guys to explain that to me, and how are the referees going to distinguish the two things? Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Appreciate it, Paul. That's certainly putting the refs in a weird spot where they have to figure this out. To me, a quarterback sneak is taking advantage of the gap between the center and the guard, and taking the ball under center and immediately diving onto the play. That's a quarterback sneak. A tush push is when someone comes around behind them and pushes them from behind. I mean, I guess easy answer is a tush push, you're being pushed, and a quarterback sneak, you're not.
Yeah, I think that both plays, Paul, are a form of the quarterback sneak, but you see it done from some quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson without the pushing of the tush, and then you see Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts go under center, go low, and they're pushed by two tight ends or whoever it is behind them. So I think to answer your question, Paul, it's the same in a sense. It's just a variation of the play, kind of like an option to me. I mean, it's like a triple option, wing T, a double wing back option where there's different variations of it, Paul. That's the best way I can explain it. But thanks for the call, Paul.
Wesley Roberts is coming after me now. He says 20 years old is not legal drinking age. Diesel, no, it is not. 20 years old is not legal drinking age. But guess what? We are beyond the statute of limitations. Come at me. I dare you. Where were you when your team's biggest sports moments happened? That's the conversation right now. Cole, I grew up a Clemson fan, but I did not maintain my hardcore Clemson fandom after I went off to another school. That's always been my rule. Be a fan of the school that you go to, and it is your duty as a student and alum of the school that you go to cheer on that school first and foremost, not some other place that you grew up being a fan of. If you really wanted to get into that school, you should have studied harder, and you should have gone to the school. If you really want to be a North Carolina Tar Heel, but you didn't have the grades for it, you only had grades for Charlotte, you only have yourself to blame, you need to cheer for Charlotte. That's my opinion on that.
So can I only be a North Greenville fan?
That's Division 2.
Okay,
it's a different
good.
division.
Good.
It's a different division. You're safe, okay?
Okay, good. Thanks.
So where was I when Clemson won their 2016 national championship? I was in the break room at Academy Sports, right up the road here, because there's an academy about half a mile from where we sit right now. I didn't work for Academy. I worked for Odyssey, Intercom at the time. But, Cole, I had a situational remote.
Oh, wow.
If Clemson won the national championship, Academy was going to open their doors and sell national championship merchandise for a couple of hours. And my job was to be there covering the event, breaking in and going live if they won. Now, if they didn't win, I got to go home and go to bed and don't get a dang thing.
Sure.
Here's where that sucks, right? Like, I got to get out of bed. I got to go. I got to put my nice shirt on. I got to go to the venue, and I got to be there in case something happens. If something don't happen, I don't get any money back.
I was in the academy, not Greenville, but I was at Spartanburg Academy.
Really?
Right after, yeah. We some friends of mine went to academy when it was over, and got the collections. You said 2016, is that right?
Would have been the 16 title.
The first of the two.
I did it. Let's see, how many national title games did Clemson play in? Like 3?
I think 3.
3. I know I was there for one that they did not win, whatever year that was.
Was that the loss to Georgia? Or no, that was the loss to LSU, right? That was the loss to Joe Burrow. That was the Joe Burrow loss. I'm sorry. They lost to Georgia in the playoffs. That was weird. I'll tell you this. I watched Clemson, Georgia, first round playoff in Israel at like 6 a.m. It was weird. 6 a.m., wake up.
I always wonder
football.
what it's like for whenever they flash to or cut to the troops who are watching the national championship game in whatever country they're in. Yeah, and they're watching the game at like 3, 4, 5, 6 in the morning, and they're stoked. They're excited to be there. Let's see. James says Bama beat them in 2015 too, so maybe that's the way I'm thinking here. James, appreciate the history lesson. I think maybe I was there for 2015. When they lost and I had to turn around and go home. 2016, I was also there.
Maybe that's what it was.
So I stayed to do the event.
Maybe that's what. Yeah, I was thinking the LSU game, but it might have been Alabama. Dewey says I was in jail when the Braves won the World Series. Thanks, Dewey. Shadowlike said I was on the right field line during the Sid Bream slide. Oh my word, that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. Shadowlike, that's a great story. That's the one to tell over the air right there. Thomas at 423 says, I was 15 years old when Dwight Clark made the catch. Go 49ers. I don't like talking about that. Texter says,
Who did he make that catch against?
My biggest moment as a Vikings fan was in 1998. I was sitting at home, my parents' living room with Gary Anderson missing kick. How about this? Let's see. Texter from the 344, Gamecocks beating Bama in 2009 was his biggest. I was watching with my dad at home in Lake Greenwood, says the texter. That was a big one. I remember where I was when I was watching that one too. I didn't go to that one obviously, but I was in the woods, and I remember Steven Garcia, and pulling the upset. Man, it was just absolutely unbelievable.
JB says, October 95, sitting in my mom and dad's living room watching the Braves win their first World Series with my late mom. That's one of the fondest memories I have of her.
Oh, that's cool.
Celebrating that moment together. JB,
That's
that's incredible. We appreciate you sharing that.
Corn Chip says, I was at my in-laws for the Braves big game against the Dodgers in 21, and then at work when they won the World Series. Oh, that's tough. At work? I hope you were able to watch it.
Ooh.
It's like, what's his name? Our buddy Sam having to deliver pizzas during the Super Bowl. But it didn't happen. Didn't happen thanks to Rick and Greer. Texter from the 901, Clemson played in 4 national championships the last few years and won 2 of them. Yeah, the 2 wins were over Bama, and the 2 losses were to LSU and to Bama, right? Am I right on that? I think so.
JD's taking shots at you. Tony Romo botching that field goal hold to beat the 49ers is Cole's biggest Cowboys moment, or the Dez Bryant no catch.
The worst. Yeah, I mean, the Dez Bryant no catch, JD, in 2015, January of 2015, I believe, was the worst moment. That was by far the worst.
And Wesley says, Gamecocks thinking really hard about this segment. Keep thinking. Man.
I like it.
Oh, man. And
By the
look,
way, what's
the
your
biggest moment as a Carolina Panther fan has to be being in the Super Bowl against the Broncos. Cam Newton not diving on that football. It felt like the Panthers had it won. The first half, they were crushing the Broncos. And then they came back. I was at one of our former coworker, Twisted Todd's house, which, believe it or not, is like 200 yards away from my current house.
Wow.
And we were in his living room watching it, and all of us were screaming at the TV, jump on the ball, Cam, jump on the ball.
You know what's crazy about that? And then we'll go to Brian. I remember before that Super Bowl, the overwhelming consensus was that Carolina was going to blow them out. Carolina was going to blow everybody.
Because Peyton couldn't turn his neck. He was like Batman in the Michael Keaton era. He had to do this.
Wild. Brian wants to chime in on the phone lines at 844-FAN-PHONE. What's up, Brian?
Hey, well, I'm a New York Giants fan that grew up right here in town. Dad's a Cowboy fan. Brother was a Redskin fan. So in 2007, flew to Vegas, stayed there, rented a car, drove down to Phoenix with no tickets. Bought tickets in the parking lot. I just wanted to see my team in the Super Bowl. And I got to see the greatest of all time, beating an undefeated team, taking down the Patriots.
Yep.
And winning that Super Bowl.
Was that the helmet catch year, Brian?
Yeah. Yes, that was David Tyree caught it.
Yeah.
So, Brian, you said you got Redskins, Giants, and Cowboys fans in one family. Have you all ever considered family counseling?
Yeah, it was rough. The days of, Troy and Michael and Emmett, those days were brutal. My dad would rub it in that, beat the Giants by 30, and he would come and bang on my door at night, Monday Night Football. Hey, man, how about some Cowboys? I hated them, man. I couldn't stand them.
Yeah, you love them or hate them, Brian?
I hate them to this day.
Well, maybe.
And you know what? I missed my flight coming out of Vegas back to Spartanburg, and they gave me another one where I landed in Dallas. And the next morning I was walking through the airport and had an Eli jersey on, and a guy at a bar across the way, he screamed out, "Hey, Eli!" And you shot me a bird.
I love it. I love it.
I was like, this is Dallas, man.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for the call, Brian.
Thanks for the call.
Appreciate you listening as well. Good stuff there. And, Brian's dad, he's the smart one of the family, I must say. Brian's dad, the Cowboy fan, the smart one of the bunch. Diesel.
Smart, sadist.
Yeah, I mean, it starts with the same letter. Also, with the same letter, Stafford. Matthew Stafford has been given permission to speak to other teams about his market value. Smart move for Stafford to look other places, or is his best landing spot right where he is in L.A.? We'll get into that next. subscribe and share the show however you're watching, especially if you're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Cheesehead Corey says, hey, Cole, as a Packers fan, I remember the Dez Bryant incomplete pass. Even if it was called a catch, there was still plenty of time for Rodgers to go down the field and win. Cheesehead Corey, you're right. I believe it was like 4.5 minutes or so to go in the game when they did that. It was 3rd and 1. And you're right. Aaron Rodgers probably would have gone down there. However, Dallas's defense was good, man. They had Sean Lee and some really good defensive players, and they had played really well that game. So I don't know. That's probably the toughest moment ever.
Cheesehead Corey, how do you feel about your team being the one that brings up the attempt to ban the tush push?
Somebody has to call out the cheaters, right? I mean, if y'all say they're cheating, somebody has to call. Green Bay said, we'll call them out. We'll get rid of. Tiger Pal Rachel says, was watching the Yankees game at home both times. Blew out 1 out. The second time he blew out 2 outs. I just fell on the floor. Couldn't believe it. Let's see. Different. Oh, that's same. That's still Tiger Pal Rachel. It's been a while though, Tiger Pal Rachel, right? For those Yankees, no, not trying to throw shots there, but
hey, they can wear beards now. Tiger Pal Rachel. That's exciting. You finally get that monkey off your back. Players in October are going to be a little bit warmer, so maybe they'll play better in October.
Maybe so. Maybe with beards they're better now. Cheesehead Corey wants to chime in on the phone lines, 844-FAN phone. Got a couple of minutes before we run to a break. Cheesehead Corey, what's up, man?
Hey, call me out on the radio after my text, huh?
Yeah, man. Well, that's what we do. We read the text on the radio.
We love you to text in, but we want you to call in. That's where it's at, Corey.
Well, I tried calling before, but I did 864 the fan.
There you go.
Yeah, I think the Packers are probably taking one for the team on this. And the team, I mean, the other 31 teams that can't stop the Eagles. So I think there's more teams that feel the same way, but I just think the Packers are ones that are willing to step forward and be a part of the other 31 teams that are. But I don't care. Usually they make changes in the NFL based on
what's your name?
If it has something to do with player safety. So I don't know if there's been any major injuries on the tush push, has there?
No, there have been zero, actually. 0 injuries.
Yeah, so I don't if you can't stop it, if it's in the rules, even if they banned it, Philly, I'm thinking, would come up with a different play anyways that's very similar to skate around the current changes. So.
Hey, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, man. Appreciate you. Tiger Pal Rachel also wanted to get in. Go ahead, Diesel.
It makes me think a little bit, since I'm a music guy, it makes me think of the 90s when Metallica sued Napster for all the people sharing their music all over the place. I mean, it became such a common thing. Everyone was doing it. It doesn't make it not illegal. And Metallica are the ones who took the heat for that, even though they weren't the only ones on that lawsuit. The Packers are going to be the ones taking the heat on this, though everyone, I think, is going to benefit from this play being reversed.
Tiger Pal Rachel, what's on your mind? Good to hear from you.
Hey, guys. 2 quick things. One, that was about the text I sent. I think it got cut off. It was about Mike Mussina taking a perfect game into the 9th inning 2 different times and blew it both times.
What year was that, Tiger Pal Rachel? Do you remember?
Gosh, I don't know. The first time, I don't know. It wasn't the same year. It was like a year or 2 apart. But it was just so unbelievable that he did it again and then blew it with 2 outs in the 9th.
That's tough, right? That is really, really tough. 1 strike. Was he 1 strike away from perfection? 2001, by the way, against the Boston Red Sox.
Yeah, it was the Red Sox. Of course it was the Red Sox.
Thanks for the call, Tiger Pal. That is great, man. That's really good stuff. One more. We have time for one more, Diesel?
We do. Let's get one more on the phone.
What's your name?
We'll do that here in just a moment as Cole is feverishly taking these phone calls.
Billy Horn wants to weigh in. Billy Horn, what's up, man?
Not much, boys. I'm confused about these Packers here. Just because you got blown out and you can't stop the tush push, now we want to make it illegal. Tell me what's wrong with the play. Why are we going to overturn it? Where's there a problem? Nobody's been hurt, so you can't claim that it's a safety issue. What are we going to do? Complain that Washington jumped off sides 4 times and the ref was going to give them a penalty. So we don't want that to happen. Suck it up. Learn to play football. Play some defense. Stop the play or stop whining.
I'm with you, by the way.
I'm done griping.
I'm with you. Great call, Billy Horn.
Great call. He
Best
said,
call of
by the
day.
way, he said, suck it up. In case anyone from the FCC is listening, he said, suck it up.
I looked at you.
Yeah.
I looked at you.
Both of us, our eyes got huge.
What did he say? What did he say?
No, I think, Cole, ultimately where this will go, I know that the rule currently says assisting a player is pulling them forward or picking them up. I think this will ultimately go under that umbrella term of assisting the runner. Just because there hasn't been a rule against something in the past doesn't mean they can't set a new rule against something in the future. Otherwise, nothing would ever get done anywhere in rules for sports and laws or anything, right? You have to adapt to the way the game is changing and new ways that people are kind of coming up with ways to cheat.
NASCAR changes rules and everybody freaks out. Now the NFL does it. They say, "Oh, it's not fair."
When we come back, Cole, on the other side of the break. Yesterday, we talked about the Carolina Panthers moving on from 10-year veteran Shaq Thompson. The question is, how do they replace him? Or are they actually missing out on that much not having Shaq Thompson? That conversation is on the other side of the break on the Fan Upstate. Well, the Carolina Panthers now have a very glaring need at linebacker, Cole, after moving on from 10-year veteran and former first-round pick Shaq Thompson in 2015. But are they actually missing out on that much? Getting rid of Shaq Thompson, it feels, as a Carolina Panthers fan, like, oh, well, we're shedding someone off who's been loyal to this organization, who has kept pounding for 10 years.
Oh, that's what you did there.
Yeah, it's the phrase that pays in Charlotte. Right. But are they actually missing out that much without him? No. If you look at his 2024 production, that is, Shaq Thompson had 19 solo tackles, not in the top 150 in the NFL, 0 sacks, 0 forced fumbles, 0 interceptions. Why are Carolina Panthers fans who have seen this franchise go down the bleeper, why are they that upset that he's actually gone?
Well, he only played 4 games.
Hurt?
He only played 4 games this year.
So, well, okay. So he's ineffective or not available for the Carolina Panthers. Why are you upset that we're getting rid of this guy?
I think when healthy, again, your best ability is availability, right? And there's the lifelong debate of what dictates a player being injury prone. Do you consider a torn Achilles tendon, being an injury prone kind of guy? Do you consider a concussion?
No.
There's different injuries, right? That make you injury prone. He also had a broken fibula in 23. So he's had issues health-wise. When healthy, he's phenomenal.
So what I just heard, Cole, and I'm not trying to be rude and stomp all over you, but I heard he is a guy who is rarely available. That's
Past
all.
2 years.
That's all that matters. The circumstances around why he has injuries, the circumstances, like how he got them, what this one was, what that one was, doesn't matter. This is not a charity case, okay? This is the NFL. We're not keeping guys on roster for their 10th, 11th, 12th seasons in the NFL just because we like having them around, because they got a great smile. No, your job is to be on the field contributing. And if you're never on the field, then you're not contributing. If you're not contributing, then you're weighing this franchise down. The Carolina Panthers defense, Cole, sucked last year. I mean, absolutely sucked. They were 32nd in yards allowed per game. They were 21st in generating turnovers. They were 29th in generating sacks in 2024. All of those things fall on linebackers to facilitate or achieve getting sacks, stopping the run, and generating turnovers.
Yeah,
that's a linebacker's job. And if he's not able to do his job, he shouldn't be around.
Well, I mean, I don't completely agree with that. I mean, that same philosophy, let's get rid of Ronald Acuna too, right? Like, I don't completely agree with that philosophy. However, he is 4th in all-time Carolina Panthers record books when it comes to tackling. So when he's been available, he has been very, very good. The age is where I, Diesel, believe that I think ultimately they said with his age, at 30 years old, we need to get younger. You and I talked about that yesterday. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, I think it was the right move for Carolina. I hate it because Shaq Thompson's a heck of a player when healthy, but I do think it was the right move because as a franchise, as a owner, as a general manager, they always say the best bosses are those that don't care about the feelings of their employees and the emotional ties and the family situations. And that is very, very harsh to say, but it's true. The best bosses care about the product, right? The overall well-being of the business, the organization. And it sounds harsh to say that, but I think Carolina made the right decision for what he would cost going forward. If he were to get another injury, I think he's on the back end. It's safe to say now that he's on the back end of his career.
Well, yeah, if you got a guy that's constantly injured, it's not going to suddenly get better. It's not like his leg is going to heal or his Achilles is going to heal and be better than it was before. This is not Tommy John surgery in Major League Baseball where, God, it feels like this would be bad. I mean, and the political world would lose their minds over this. Let's just give all pitchers, when they're 17 years old, 18 years old. Just give them all Tommy John surgery because they all somehow come back better and stronger than they were before they had
a lot.
Tommy John surgery, right? So it would stand to reason, if you were just using cold calculated logic, it would stand to reason to preemptively give every pitcher coming up through baseball Tommy John surgery. That way they don't ever have to deal with this down the road. It doesn't hurt them once they get into the major league level. But the question becomes, Cole, how do you replace a guy like Shaq Thompson, a guy who's got a lot of experience but is rarely available? And, if you're Dan Morgan, if you're Dave Tepper, if you're Dave Canales, and you're in that war room thinking about what do we do in the NFL draft to replace him, or at the very least, try to dramatically young up, that's not a word, but, lower the age of this defense and bring them out of the basement of this league. How do you achieve that in the NFL draft?
Well, I think before they got rid of Shaq Thompson, Diesel, I think Dan Morgan and the Panthers knew that defense was their priority before. And now that they've gotten rid of Shaq Thompson, I think they know now that, and again, they could do something crazy with that number 8. However, I believe that they know now that not only Diesel is defense the priority now, defense is the only option now. And I truly believe that's where they are. Could they go offense at 8? Absolutely. Will they? I don't think so. I think it's 90% to 10% right now that they go defense in the first pick. I think they'd be absolutely stupid to go offense right now because, think about it, as bad as the defense was last year, Shaq wasn't on the field. So if you're looking at, what do we look like without Shaq, just look at last year's defense.
Yeah.
He wasn't there. You've got to have upgrades at edge and now linebacker.
The offense, clearly figured something out over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks of the season. So even though you're certainly not satisfied with where the offense is, you feel like bringing those pieces back, we should, in theory, be able to replicate or come close to replicating what we had over the last 6 weeks of the season. Now, if we can suddenly get some more interceptions, stop the run, generate turnovers, all of a sudden, the points that we were putting up over the last 5 or 6 weeks should be good enough to win us another 3, 4 games over the course of the season. And now we're talking about a 7, 8, 9, 10 win Carolina Panthers team. And you're talking about a team that's outside shot of winning the division, outside shot of making the playoffs, and then you get to build back up from there. You can't put 100% of your focus on one side of the ball because you're going to lose a lot of football games that way.
Yeah, I still think when you talk about what this team will look like in 2025 and where Panther fans' realistic expectations should be, I still think they're several years away, Diesel, from being a 10-win team. I think that this year you've got to make some improvements defensively. I don't know that you'll have the cap space to do anything in the free agency offseason beginning March 12th when free agency opens. Next offseason, I think you might. Next offseason, you might have a little bit of wiggle room to make some moves and add to your offense. I think the 2026 season will be a very good year for Carolina. I think you're now talking about having the potential of winning 8, 9, 10 games in 2026.
Which would align perfectly with the stat of 3 years after a team bottoms out, they increase their win total by 6. Now you're talking about an 8 or 9 win team 3 years after bottoming out.
My worry is, though, that they get so caught up in the offense and Bryce Young that they try to do something at quarterback because of the owner that sits up there in the owner's box. I don't know that they will, but I really, after you and I watched Carolina last year and went back and forth on what they should do with Bryce, I think the best move now is that, Diesel, as long as you're getting consistent improvement from your quarterback in Bryce Young, he's your guy. Quit worrying about it. Build a really good team around them, and 3 to 4 years from now, 5, 6 years from now, if he hasn't panned out, then you're in position with a really good team to only be a quarterback away. That you've got to quit worrying about the quarterback position. I know that's not fun, but you've got to.
It's not even remotely a priority. I mean, they've got this season now to figure out if Bryce Young over the last 6 weeks of the season is who Bryce Young can be every season
and if he is
going
great,
forward. And if he is great, if he's not, you're building pieces around him. I could see them picking up maybe a wide receiver somewhere later on in this draft, but everything that I'm seeing for the Carolina Panthers, especially after this Shaq Thompson move, is defense, 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 defense. Now, this is a little bit older at this point, so taking this with a grain of salt doesn't necessarily change everything, Cole. But I was looking at a SportsIllustrated.com mock draft from just about 3 weeks ago, and they had the Carolina Panthers going defense with their first 5 picks.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
like it.
all defense across
really
the board. And then, by the way, for what it's worth, that particular mock draft had them picking up Cam Skattebo in the 5th round of the draft. You think Cam Skattebo drops all the way to the 5th round? I'm not entirely sure, but God dang it, I'd love to have that guy in Carolina. I mean, that guy would embody keep pounding through and through.
But would you rather, as a Panthers fan, would you rather have 5 defensive players and 2 of them may pan out, or would you rather sacrifice a first-round pick next year or a second-round pick, move up in the draft, and go get Abdul Carter this year? I think I'd go get Abdul Carter.
Can they? I mean, depending on where you look, they might have to move all the way up to number 1.
To
get him. You look at some mock drafts, Abdul Carter is mock number 1.
So Mel
That's
Kiper,
nuts
Mel
to think
Kiper
of.
just released his latest this morning. This is his last pre-combine mock draft.
Mm-hmm.
He has number 1, Abdul Carter going to the Titans.
Mm-hmm. Could you imagine the riots in Nashville if they left Cam Ward on the cutting room floor and went Abdul Carter? You're getting a great player, but if you leave Cam Ward there,
I couldn't do it. I couldn't because I'll tell you why. You eventually have got to figure this thing out at quarterback in Nashville. You've got to figure this out.
You know what they would have to do? I know you're not a movie guy, but do you watch South Park?
No.
There was a season where Mr. Marsh was exposed to some radiation, and his downstairs bits grew very large, and he had to carry him around in a wheelbarrow. That's what the Tennessee Titans brass would have to do if they left Cam Ward alone and went after Abdul Carter, defensive player.
I love Abdul
number
Carter.
1. He's a great player.
But I think
good
that's
God.
dumb. I think that's dumb. I really do. Cleveland would then take Cam Ward. And this latest Mel Kiper pre-combine draft, he has Carolina at 8, taking Jalen Walker, which I love, linebacker out of Georgia. It's got to be defense, right, says Mel Kiper. After the news broke that they won't sign Shaq Thompson, they didn't have a single edge rusher, Diesel, with 6 or more sacks last year. Think about that. They didn't have a single edge rusher last year with 6 or more sacks. Walker is very much like Micah Parsons, where he can play edge or outside linebacker. He's a guy that is explosive, and I think if he's there, I really believe if Jalen Walker is there at 8, he is the no-brainer pick for Carolina. They better hope he doesn't, get chosen at 6 or 7, but he showed out at Georgia. He was fantastic.
Yeah, they got to get an elite linebacker. They've got to get an edge rusher. Maybe they can get a good edge rusher in the 2nd round and replace piece for piece, replace Shaq Thompson with a linebacker in the draft this year. It's going to be fascinating to see what they do, Colin. You kind of got to look at all the mock drafts and sort of form a consensus in your mind of where you think they're going to go. Panthers Wire has them going Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan, a wide receiver out of Stanford, and a defensive lineman out of Texas. Cat Crave has got him going Will Johnson, and then edge rusher Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M. Not a bad 2nd-round pickup there. See, that again, that seems to me to be logical there. If you can get Jalen Walker, if you can get an elite linebacker, you can fall back to the 2nd round and maybe get yourself a decent edge rusher, and you'd be okay.
Here's my issue with the receiver. We talked about maybe them going receiver late. My problem with that is you look at this receiver class. McMillan out of Arizona, and I'm no scout. Luther Burden III out of Missouri. Egbuka out of Ohio State, in my opinion, probably one of the best receivers. Matthew Golden out of Texas. Trey Harris out of Ole Miss. Let's say Ty Felton out of Maryland. What I'm getting at is there's nobody, when you look at this receiving room, there's not a Jeremiah Smith. There's not a T. Higgins. There's nobody that just blows your pants off when it comes to a guy popping off the page. There's not. So I think that whatever you said a minute ago about going all 5-6 rounds, I'm fine with it. And you can trade somebody like I really am. I'd load up defensively because when Carolina was in their heyday, man, they had dudes defensively. And they hadn't had dudes defensively in a good while. They got to get back to that.
Isn't it fascinating, though, that we've seen the edge guys like Abdul Carter and Mykel Williams, those guys have shifted up in a lot of these drafts. I mean, mock drafts. There was a point where Abdul Carter was mocked to go 8th to the Panthers, and him being the first defensive edge rusher in this draft. Now he's projected as high as 2-1. Yeah, they don't know.
They don't know that early. I mean, now they do. They do. They know in February.
And you never know which ones are guessing, which ones are kind of trying to predict what they might do, which ones are going off of inside information that they're actually hearing and how trustworthy are their sources, and how many of them are just saying, here's what I would do if I was in that position.
Hey, I'll tell you this. Here's a fun one for you, and maybe this is a segment we can do later in the week or next week. I've done it before. Go look at Mel Kiper's mock drafts from the last 10 years, and then go take those mock drafts and look at what actually happened. I'm telling you, it's not. Some years it's not close.
I would love to know. And you could probably look at it and use a degree of accuracy of plus or minus 5 picks. If you say Johnny Walker, right, is going to go 15th, well, if he goes anywhere from 10th to 20th, seems like an accurate play for that prediction.
Yeah.
And if you really want to be, specific with it, you can go down to like 2 or 3, especially with the top 5 picks. But outside of that, plus or minus 5 picks in the first round, and then the second round's a total crapshoot because you never know who's going to be on the board at that point. Now, I would like to see, Cole, just to continue that South Carolina connection. What if Demetrius Knight Jr. is still there in the second round?
I think he will be.
And Carolina can get him at 40.
Yeah, I think he'll be. He's an older guy that has experience. I think he'll go second round. I'd be surprised to see him pop up in the first. There's just so many good defensive players this year. Mm-hmm. There really is. I don't know. I think he'd probably be. I think Nick Emmanwori will go before he goes. Nick Emmanwori, in my opinion, will go late in the first round, and that'd be a great get for Carolina. But Nick's not going to fall in the second round, I don't believe. But it's going to be – I love the draft. I really do. It's 2 months away now?
And we are going to be at Bemini's for the draft.
2 days in a row.
It's going to be exciting. We want to see all you Tolos out there. Come on. You sure you don't want to come hang out, have a beer, shuck some oysters with us, and watch the draft?
They have great food, man. They have great seafood. I had a Low Country Bowl last time I was there. Ooh. We'll be there Thursday to preview the draft and Friday to react to it. In Greenville, on location. That's what we do. In the very next segment, we're going to talk a little South Carolina Gamecocks. So Gamecock fans, get ready. By the way, just a quick scoring update. Winthrop is up on Clemson 2-0 right now. Big South ACC matchup going on a beautiful day in Clemson. We talk Gamecocks, though, with Derek Scott in the very next segment. The first time we've had Derek on the show since our debut in March of 2024. Derek is the South Carolina Gamecocks radio play-by-play for baseball and men's basketball. A deep conversation with Derek Scott next. Quick scoring update for you Clemson fans out there. Clemson did get a base hit in the bottom of the first inning. Oh, no, excuse me. They ruled it foul. So bases loaded for the Tigers. Cam Canarella was walked. Winthrop from the Big South leads Clemson 2-0 early over in Clemson. Appreciate all you Tolos listening on this Tuesday afternoon. But we shift things towards Columbia, where we talk Gamecocks, baseball, and basketball with Derek Scott, the play-by-play voice of the baseball program and of the basketball program as well. And Derek, man, I heard in this post-game press conference, all Lamont Paris and company needed was some new shoes to get their first SEC win of the year. Is that right?
Who knew? Who knew it was as simple as, got to be the shoes. That was the line from Mars Blackman many, many moons ago, if you're old enough to remember Mars Blackman. But whatever it takes, man, just had to get off the snide and get into the win column. And now, as he told me earlier today, he said, instead of worrying about getting the first one, getting one, you just worry about the next one now. And he's hoping that relieves some pressure from his guys and allows them to play a little more freely here moving forward.
Derek, what have the interactions been like between Jeremiah Donati and the basketball program? Obviously, he doesn't want to come in and change everything Lamont Paris is doing this early. He just arrived on campus himself. But clearly there are conversations going back and forth. So tell us what that is like right now.
Well, I mean, first off, it's not like they bring the play-by-play guy into their conversations between the AD and the head coach. So I'm no expert in that regard, but I can tell you what I gather in talking to Jeremiah. He's not trying to tell Lamont anything about how to run his program. He's trying to listen and figure out where the pain points are and what he can do to help. And primarily, he's looking at that from a budget standpoint because I think you talk about NIL dollars, and that's what everybody looks at now. And if you're falling behind there, then you're likely going to fall behind on the court, too, in terms of wins and losses. And, that's what I'm hearing a lot of questions about is, okay, are we just not where we need to be in terms of what you have in your NIL budget? And if that is the case, what can we do, moving forward to change that so you can be more competitive, to target the guys you want to get out of the portal and try and make sure that you've got more depth and more guys that can get you, into the top half of this murderous league.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough league, without a doubt. Derek, you have had a front row seat to South Carolina basketball in 2024 and 2025. I know it had have been frustrating at times. You talk about the Auburn game, the Florida game, two really good teams, top 5 teams, where South Carolina, at points looked like they were the better team, and just unable to get them done. From your vantage point, could you pinpoint in your mind what exactly it's been over that long stretch that you guys went through that just was the catalyst that eventually got the Gamecocks over the hump, but was not allowing them to win those close games through the first part of the season?
Primarily, it's turnovers. If it was no coincidence to me that against Texas, South Carolina had its fewest turnovers of the season, 8. And when you look at the games when they've played their best, turnovers have been kept in check. But more often than not, they have gotten way too inflated, the turnover numbers and the percentage of possessions that end in turnovers in conference play. Until the last couple games, it was up nearly 25% of all possessions ending in turnovers. And you just can't win that way against anybody, let alone against, as you alluded to, top 5 teams. And when it got away from them against Florida, when they let that double-digit lead slip away, it was because Florida went to a full-court press out of basically desperation because nothing else was working. They're not typically a pressing team. And they immediately turned the game around by turning South Carolina over repeatedly and getting easy buckets as a result of that. And so that's really the most consistent issue. The offense has been a struggle really all season long, but a lot of those struggles come with the fact that not enough possessions are ending with a shot even going up.
Derek Scott, play-by-play voice of Gamecocks basketball and baseball. What's your secret, Derek, to staying positive versus being starkly honest, or I guess striking a balance between those two things through the frustration of covering a team that's struggled as they have?
I don't know that I'd say I've got any secret. I probably am too honest for my own good at times. But at the same time, you know how hard these guys are working and how hard they're trying. And I mean, that's the thing, when you see them competing as well as they have in, matchups with all of these top 5 teams. I mean, if you're into the net rankings at all and you look up and realize, I mean, tonight is going to be for South Carolina. This will be our 27th game of the season. And of those 27, actually, this will be the 28th game of the season. My mistake. So this will be the 28th game of the season, and it'll be our 15th game against a quad 1 opponent. I mean, that's just ludicrous. When you play over half of your games against the best teams in the country, then that is, that's just the deck's kind of stacked against you there. And so, knowing that and watching these guys and being with them on the road and seeing, how seriously they take it, how hard they're working and trying, you try and keep that in your head when you are frustrated with what you're seeing on the court. Sometimes you're, better at it than others. It's ironic that the last 2 games have been the highs and the lows. I thought the first half of the LSU game 2 games ago was the worst half of basketball I've watched all season. And I know myself and Casey were both pretty frustrated with it. But then you come back and you play, your best half of basketball in the first half against Texas probably all season. So, it's a sport. Both teams are trying to win, so you can't always be frustrated with what's going on with your team because somebody else is out there trying to get it done. And tonight that somebody is Missouri, who was in our shoes last year. They went over in the league last year, and everybody was stunned by it, but they have bounced back in amazing fashion and now are one of the, top 15 teams in the country.
Yeah, and without a doubt, it's going to be another tough one tonight on the road again. And talking about a good opponent for South Carolina, as Derek Scott is joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. When you look at the way that Lamont Paris's teams have kind of been developed and brought together, Derek, over the last 3 years, we talk about what they can get better at. Obviously, the things in the game are the top of the page, the turnovers that you mentioned. But is there anything that you've noticed or that that coach has talked about post game, or even to you, that he wants to change in terms of the future of the program going forward in the next few years, whether it be the style of players he recruits, the depth the program needs, or anything in that realm of in terms of just the big picture kind of things?
2 things I would say there. One, I know he wants to his style of play. He wants shooters. He wants guys that will knock down open shots because he thinks he can run an offense or get those open shots. And that's the one thing, one of the things this team's lacking. You don't have enough knockdown shooters on this bunch that, when they get open threes, you feel good about it going in. I mean, they're averaging less than 6 3-pointers a game in SEC play, and you just can't play that way in this modern era and be successful on a regular basis. The other thing that I'm not saying he's committed to this, but I know it's in his head somewhat, is thinking about the incredibly high level of physicality that is being played in this league and being allowed in this league. And I think on some level, I think LP's probably kind of thought about, okay, do we have to change, the style to some degree because of the fact that, what used to be fouls aren't being called a lot now, and you have to really, really be strong with the basketball. And at times, this bunch has looked a little bit maybe slight compared to its opponents in that regard. And, if that's the case, then maybe you have to think about that when you're recruiting and what kind of guys you're looking for in the portal in terms of, not just height, but also strength.
Derek Scott joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. He's the play-by-play voice for South Carolina baseball and basketball. Moving over to the Diamond side of things, where does it feel like this weekend's upcoming series ranks among recent seasons in terms of importance and what you think you're going to learn about this South Carolina Gamecocks team? They haven't really been tested to this point of the season. Pitching has been pretty good. Bats have gotten going a few times, but this will be their first foray into Division I competition. What do you think about this upcoming series against Clemson?
Well, I mean, they're all Division I opponents that we've played. So
sure, sorry, excuse me.
But I mean, it's a power conference team. It's a nationally ranked opponent, and that's usually, how you size it up is you ease into it and then be ready because, behind Clemson, you've got, the murderer's row of SEC competition. South Carolina, I think, is the only team in the country that is scheduled to play all 5 of the top 5 ranked teams in the country this year, the current top 5. And when you look at around those rankings, you're going to see those guys on a regular basis. So I think with Clemson, the fans get really excited for this rivalry. It's bragging rights. It's intense. It's, neighbors going head to head against each other so they can talk smack for the rest of the year. I don't know how much importance you can put on any one series, though, when you've got so many of them that are going to be against this level of competition, and this one especially being the first one out of the chute. If you're Paul Mainieri, I'm sure he's curious to learn more about his team and how they match up with a quality opponent. But I also know that he's a game-to-game kind of guy. He's not going to be putting too much on any one game. He's just been around too long and seen too much baseball to do that. I am curious to see how the pitching that has been so good so far, how that looks against a higher caliber of offense. And then I'm also curious to see, how you match up with some of those real quality arms that Clemson brings to the table, like, Canuck and so forth. I think it's always fun to get together for this series. And, especially understanding the way this thing was built back in 2010 to start playing it in 3 different venues over 3 days. I mean, it's a showcase, and everybody in this state who likes baseball or loves baseball, like some of us do, you just look forward to it every year just because of everything that goes into it.
What would you say, Derek, through the first 8 games or so that's different about the Paul Mainieri era compared to different eras that you've seen in previous years? Because it seems as if Paul Mainieri and the culture that's been created in this very short time is off to a fantastic start.
A couple things come to mind. One, in terms of style of play, they have been very aggressive running the bases, more so than I can recall any recent teams being. It has not been let's sit back here and wait on the 3-run homer. We're not going to play that way. The other side of it is just his experience in this game and him having been to the mountaintop. He knows exactly what he's looking for in every aspect of this operation. And I think that confidence is something the players recognize, and it relaxes them because, he's relaxed. He's not going to, push a panic button. He's not going to be dealing with a situation that he's not dealt with somewhere in the past, no matter what it looks like. And so I think that confidence and that comfortability in all circumstances definitely is felt by the players and allows them to do this, the very same thing.
Derek, I'm going to ask you one more personal question here. I'm going to ask you another secret of yours. How do you manage being such a road warrior, being on the road with the basketball team? As soon as baseball starts, you're on the road with them as well. I don't know about your musical proclivities, but the band Cypress Hill said being a rock star is a fun job, but it's still a job. And you are a rock star, being the voice of 2 different teams for a university. So what's it like managing just the stress and strain of being on the road constantly like that?
It's a juggling act. And what I always have to laugh about is a lot of people think this is my full-time job, and it's not. I mean, it's, like most in radio these days in this modern era, if you want to pay your mortgage, you may not be doing it as a broadcaster. So it's a side hustle. And so my real job at times has to take precedent over, dealing with that. And at the same time, when you're on the road like today, you're cooped up in a hotel room trying to make sure you're getting everything done that you need to for the real job, as well as, a broadcast that's coming up tonight. And then I was laughing earlier because when you're in the overlap season like this, you can't squander any time. So I was already thinking about, I've got to, probably got about a, 2-hour flight on the way home, and it's going to be late, but I've got to try and get something done either ahead of Friday's baseball broadcast or ahead of Saturday's basketball broadcast on the flight home, because there's just not enough time in the day to keep up with all of it this time of year. That's for sure.
Derek, it's awesome. We appreciate you talking a little Gamecock baseball and basketball for those in the upstate of South Carolina. We appreciate you. Best of luck on the call tonight, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, man. Take
Absolutely. Derek Scott, the play-by-play voice of South Carolina baseball and basketball. Fantastic stuff. And while he was talking about the Gamecocks, Diesel, I was watching on ESPN Plus the Clemson-Winthrop game, and grand slam, just like that on a Tuesday afternoon. How about that? I hadn't seen one of those yet this year, so it's always fun. Jacob Jarrell, the right-handed junior, went right up the heart of the defense. Center field, grand slam. Clemson now leads Winthrop 5-2. They're heading into the bottom of the second right now. And Chase Kick is on the mound for the Clemson Tigers. But he's right. It's you don't know what you don't know because of Clemson playing some tough competition. South Carolina, playing what everybody normally plays right now. Even Clemson normally plays a soft schedule, against the Milwaukees of the world. And Gardner-Webb tonight, I know it's a midweek game, but there's a lot to be said about South Carolina just doesn't know how they're going to match up against Canuck. And I think what sums it up for me is his point about Palmineri. Diesel. He's been there. He's been to the mountaintop in this sport, and he knows what it's going to take to get South Carolina there.
Well, anytime you've got a coach who's been around the block a time or two, realizes, yes, this series certainly means a lot to fans, but at the end of the day, for his team, this is a learning experience. This is figuring out where you stand against better pitching, how you handle pressure situations, being on the road in a big-time environment. You want to win these games, but you're certainly learning a lot more about your team along the way. When we come back, Cole, we had some fun yesterday talking about Rob Brown's new poster behind us, Wins and Losses Are Not a Quarterback Stat. What take do you hold so firmly that it cannot be shaken? Sports-wise, where do you plant your flag? That conversation is next. Not going to lie, Cole, I'm nervous about our next phone call because I don't know which way it's going to go. Kane called our show yesterday to tell us he didn't have a whole lot to say. Kane has called back. Does Kane have something to say? We find out right now. Kane, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys, the elitist is back.
Okay.
How y'all doing?
Fantastic, man.
Great. Yeah, I have a flag. I think the TUSH push is my flag that I'm gonna stick with.
I like that.
Okay, and which way do you go? Which way do you go on the TUSH push? So you got to plant the flag. You got to tell us what the flag represents.
No ban.
No ban. So keep it legal.
Let it go. Keep it legal. No changes to it either. If people want to beat it, if teams want to beat it, then they're going to have to figure out how to do it. They're going to have to recruit guys that have the strength and the stamina to beat the TUSH push. And I think that they can.
Kane, you bring up an interesting point in that the league is always kind of a pendulum swinging back and forth, right? I mean, circa 15 years ago or so, quarterbacks started getting smaller and faster. Wide receivers, running backs, all of the offensive players that touch the ball started getting quicker. So defensive players also had to get smaller and quicker, especially those out there on the edge. But now, Cole and Kane, maybe we see this being a catalyst for the league and defenses realizing we got to get bigger and stronger again, which slows them down a little bit, but it also gives them the ability to stop these plays.
Kane, I'm with you. I think the Charmin Society needs to understand that right now it's legal. It's legal.
Right.
Appreciate the phone.
And we have no room to be soft. There's no room to be soft. We're losing so much of football as it is, especially with the kickoff return.
Yeah.
I mean, how much sorry soft can you get? It is luxuriously soft these days. We need to have some hard-nosed players out there, some hard-nosed teams.
Kane, is this losing something, or is this going back to the way things were like 2 years ago?
Oh, we are so bad. I'm ready to see the Lions do it, though. I want to see the Lions do the TUSH.
If you're
and I want to see them beat the TUSH push when they go up against Philly.
Kane, if you're so back, then you're going back to something, right? Getting back means you're going back to something. Now you're just saying this is a new thing and we're here now. Deal with it.
Oh, yeah, deal with it.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for the call, Kane.
Thanks, Kane. Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. He's planting his flag on something we discussed earlier today. Where do you plant your flag, sports-wise? Again, this comes from this big old poster back here that Rob spent money to make. By the way, that's a nice poster. It's a decent sized poster. It's not like a sheet of paper that he just designed this thing and printed it out.
$30 right there, I bet, right?
Yeah, it says, what does it say? Wins and losses are not a quarterback stat. It's got the Rob Brown logo. It's got the Fan Upstate logo. I know he had to pay $1.50 to use that. And then it's got his face right there in the middle. What sports take upon which do you plant your flag? That didn't make any sense the way I just said that. Cole, mine, and this riles people up every single time I say it. If there's no defense, it's not a sport. No defense, not a sport.
It's been a while since we visited that.
Yeah, I mean, there are athletic exhibitions. Like competitive cheerleading is an athletic exhibition. I'm not taking anything away from how difficult and how precise and how much attention and choreography it takes to pull something like that off. But see, Cole, that's not judged based on your ability to get past or score on someone who's trying to stop you. That is predicated on your ability to perform your routine to perfection and have judges decide how good it was and rate your score. We had a texter or a commenter earlier on the stream who I think must have seen this in the comment section or the description of the video. And he says, is chess and checkers a sport? Because there's defense in chess or checkers. Well, Kevin, no. Checkers is not a sport. It's a game of strategy and skill. There's defense, yes, but there has to be an objective form of scoring, and in my mind, there has to be physical exertion. Otherwise, if you're just sitting at a table playing a game, that's a game. That's not a sport.
Yeah, I think everybody in radio has to have one dumb take, right? And I think that's just part of it.
Is that my dumb take?
Yeah, that's your dumb take, but it's a good dumb take.
That's okay. It's my flag. I'm planting it.
It's a good dumb take. Mine is, I think I've argued with people on this one before. Look, it's the GOAT conversation. My flag is, we have to remember as sports fans, Diesel, there's a huge difference between the most accomplished and the best ever. Again, there's a big difference between the most accomplished and the best ever. I think Aaron Rodgers, Cole Bryson, thinks Aaron Rodgers in his prime was a better football player than Tom Brady. Is Aaron Rodgers the GOAT? No. Tom Brady is the GOAT because he's the most accomplished. There's a difference, though, between the most accomplished and best ever. Michael Jordan is much more accomplished when it comes to championships than LeBron. You know me. I think LeBron's the best I've ever seen. And I think Aaron Rodgers in his prime was a better quarterback than Tom Brady was. That doesn't mean that I don't believe Tom's the GOAT. Tom is the greatest because, Diesel, he is the most accomplished. So we get that mixed up too many times. And I think as sports fans, we have to remember that there is a difference between the two.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers will always be second best because he played in the Tom Brady era. It is what it is. You can't change that. You know, sometimes you just get unlucky. You're an amazing player, but you get plopped down in an era where there's just someone better than you. And it's unfortunate. There's a lot of egos involved who think I should be the greatest, and if it wasn't for so-and-so, I'd be That's how you get Tanya Harding situations at Cole. That's how you get, what was the girl's name who like whacked her knee? Well, I know she had her like bodyguard do it. The figure skater who whacked Tanya Harding.
Who was it?
Oh, no, it was Tanya Harding, and she whacked Nancy Kerrigan's knee, or had the guy do it for her. You know what I'm trying to say?
Knee whackers.
Yeah, knee whackers, exactly. Oh. Now that is a minor league baseball team.
It
name.
is, isn't it?
You know, the Knoxville Knee Whackers. Yeah. Come on, let's rename the team. Let's call somebody. And
I like that. Knee whackers. Spartanburg knee whackers. Man, that sounds a lot better than what are burgers? What are Spartan burgers? Whatever. Jeez. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Diesel, in the very next segment, though, we are going to know because we're going to do our best to find a Cinderella. Do the opposite of what we did yesterday. We talked about the Blue Bloods yesterday, right? The Auburns, the Dukes, who are going to be there when it's all said and done in college basketball. But let's find some teams that could make a run, because what do we love about March Madness? We love the Cinderellas, and we have to go on a scavenger hunt and find some Cinderellas next. Quick scoring update from over in Clemson. The Tigers are on top of Winthrop out of the Big South, 6-3 at this very moment, top of the third inning. It's a perfect day, dude. A picture-perfect day for baseball. I mean, what is it right now outside in the upstate? 72 degrees, and you and I are stuck in these studios, but the Tolos... Yeah, I know. It's 72 and beautiful. It's 72 is like that perfect temperature, where it's not too hot, not too cold. But the Tolos, we'd rather be with you anyways, right here on the Fan Upstate. As we talked a lot of college basketball yesterday. But before we get into finding a Cinderella, I've heard twice now something that made me raise my eyebrows, and it's concerning a blue blood, who I said a couple of weeks ago is on the verge of not being a blue blood, in North Carolina. We have a sports flash, Diesel, that runs during the bottom of the hour commercial break. And I've heard twice that UNC coach Hubert Davis has been given a new contract. What am I missing here? What? Did he just get extended really for 4 more years? Are you kidding me? Hubert Davis not leaving Chapel Hill anytime soon.
Well, he goes every other, so that means 2025, 26 is going to be a heck of a year for the Tar Heels.
In the Final Four. They beat Duke in the Final Four a couple of years ago. Excuse me. It is now reported that North Carolina men's basketball coach has signed a contract extension through the 2029-2030 season with the Tar Heels. And this is fascinating news. That they have not been good. They've been inconsistent. But we know that Hubert Davis is a good coach. Nobody doubts that. Hubert Davis has missed a lot, but Diesel, instant reaction, 4-year contract. Or, a 2-year. Is that right? 2-year extension with a $1.25 million annual base salary. That is I don't want to say mind-boggling, but maybe a little bit surprising.
Mind-boggling is one word to use. Head-scratching is another word to use. I mean, what is the standard at UNC anymore? If probably missing the NCAA tournament unless they go on just a crazy run in the ACC tournament.
Yeah.
If that's good enough to get you an extension in Chapel Hill these days.
I'm surprised. What I am seeing, though, and evidently, Diesel, there is an unwavering amount of belief in Hubert Davis, regardless of what's happened. They believe in the guy. They believe in him, and Hubert Davis not going anywhere anytime soon in Chapel Hill. That's crazy. So just a couple of weeks away now from the, as you mentioned, ACC tournament. Diesel, the conference tournament's just a couple of weeks away as well. And before you know it, you and I will be filling out our brackets. So, yesterday we talked about some of the Blue Bloods, the North Carolinas, the Auburns of the world, the Dukes of the world, right? The teams that we expect to be there when it's all said and done. But I was reading earlier a piece from CBS Sports and a piece from Bleacher Report. Matt Norlander and David Kenyon both gave some Cinderellas when it comes to the 2025 NCAA tournament. You know, it happens every year, Diesel. You and I us as sports fans, we get to the tournament, and there's one team that wins 2 or 3 games that they're not supposed to win. And what do we say? I've never even heard of that team before. Who's heard of UC San Diego, right? But it happens just about every year. I said yesterday that I don't know that one Cinderella will make a deep run this year because of, just how there are so many good teams in college basketball, but UC San Diego is a great example. How many people in the upstate of South Carolina do you think have heard of UC San Diego? Surely they're not any good, right? However, they're 22-4. They're ranked 40th in the KenPom rankings. They have the 53rd ranking of best resume in college basketball. They used to be D2 4 years ago. UC San Diego is listed as maybe one of the Cinderellas in 2025. Diesel.
And watch, 2 years from now, they're going to be in the Pac-12.
San Diego State.
Yeah, San Diego State is going to the Pac-12. How awesome would it be to have they lost two teams in the same city with UCLA and USC. You would take an act of Congress to rapidly grow UC San Diego that much. But, Cole, could you imagine them replacing two LA teams with two San Diego teams in rapid succession?
I think I can get you on this one. You are the king of knowing mascots, but there's no way and where that you know the mascot of UC San Diego.
Well, to be 100% honest,
you do know it.
I don't know it off the top of my head, but I do know that their logo is like a little pitchfork because I clicked the link that we have in the rundown. I didn't know you were going to ask this question.
I didn't either until 34 seconds ago.
But I don't specifically know their mascot. Again, they have the three-pronged pitchfork, not dissimilar from what Arizona State uses.
Like a devil?
Yeah, so I'm going to say I'm going to say like they're not the Shockers.
Good guess though.
They wouldn't be the Sun Devils.
They're the Tritons.
Tritons. No, I would have never guessed that. Never guessed that.
But they're not. Look, they're wasting no time. UC San Diego is one that if you are a college basketball junkie or a college basketball nerd, write it down. They're wasting no time making a name for themselves. They're ranked higher than most teams in their territory, 9-2 on the road. They beat Utah State. They have a really good team. They're 22-4. Like I said, 40th in the KenPom ranking. And that is the number one team that Matt Norlander of CBS Sports Diesel has as a Cinderella this year.
Yeah, I apologize that I don't know more about the directional and regional California schools. The only one that I do know.
There's a million, by the way.
Yeah, the only one that I do know is UC Santa Barbara Banana Slugs because Pulp Fiction.
Banana Slugs.
They're the Banana Slugs. When Vincent accidentally shoots Marvin in the face, they have to go to what's his name's house, and they have to get new clothes, and he's wearing a UC Santa Barbara Banana Slugs t-shirt, which I have one of those, by the way.
Do you really?
I own one.
Wow, you need to wear it.
Yeah, and outside UC Irvine, don't have a clue. UC, I think there's like Cal State Northridge, don't know. Cal State Fullerton, don't know. Yeah, so the Banana Slug's the only one that I do know.
Well, the second team he mentioned, Diesel, is a team that you have on the rundown. They're 23-3, 62nd in the KenPom ranking, and there's not many mid-majors in the group that have a better resume and a case than the Drake
Bulldogs.
Bulldog, that one's easy. Yeah, right.
Well, plus I'm staring at the logo right now.
But I think that's a pretty common. Everybody knows Drake's the Bulldog.
Yeah.
I don't know why people know that, but yeah, that was an easy one.
If I had to throw my support behind one, if I had to pick one right now to say that's going to be my Cinderella for this, I'm going with Drake because I love the story behind this team. They lost their coach. They lost a star player. They had a Division II coach step right in and oversee the transition, and he's just kept them winning at a super high level. I love those kinds of stories. It's when winning is ingrained in your program's culture, you find the right guy to be able to continue that level of winning. You're not searching and hoping to find a guy who can turn your culture around. That's a difficult ask of any coach. So I just love the story of Drake, and if I could put my gasoline behind somebody, it's going to be the Drake Bulldogs.
They're really good, 23-3 again. Make a note mentally, Diesel, a fun game. Once the brackets come out, once you and I have, 68 teams? Is that right? 64, 68 teams, whatever it is.
76 soon.
Oh, God. Once we have the teams, you and I will talk about, who we like and everything. But 2 segments need to be me. This one's going to be me putting you to the test of the mascots of the bracket. See, if there were 68 teams, how many right now do you think you could guess right? You think you could get half?
I could get more than half.
I
think I could, out of 68, I could probably write it down. This is fine. Okay. I think I could get 55.
Wow, that's a lot. I
think I could get 55 right.
That'd be impressive. And then the second game, I'll have to get some help from the Tolos, but the next game would be you putting me to the test of all 68 teams of where they're located.
Ooh, like what state they're in. Yeah.
What's your name?
That's a fun game. I'm down to play that game. Mascots versus location. That's going to be a fun one, man. I think Tolos, who do you think's going to win this matchup? Of me guessing mascots, Cole guessing
you're going to win. There's
state.
No doubt. I have no
the
idea.
State that these teams are in.
I have no idea.
I mean, look, you'll get every bit of probably 30 of them right just by being power teams, and some of which having the name of the school or the state in the name of the school. I think you get minimum 30 just off of that, like 30 gimmies. Stuff. I think you could have. I think this would be a real.
Guy reminds me, Cole. We remember the Drake Bulldogs because they played Duke a couple of years ago in the big game. I forgot.
Yeah,
about
I didn't even place that.
I remember the Bulldogs, and I was thinking, Guy, why don't I know Drake Bulldogs? But great point, Guy. Let's go to the phones where we hear from our daily Dewey. Dewey, what's on your mind?
Yes. I don't think there's going to be any Cinderellas this year.
Okay, why?
All the teams, there are a bunch of good teams, and they're all knocking each other off already. And it's going to be the same old teams over and over again. You got UConn, Dookie, North Carolina, which North Carolina stinks this year, but Clemson's not going to be there. They're going to be, I said they're going to be out in the first round. They're going to fall to a 15th seeded team or some nonsense like that. That's your Cinderella. Whoever beats Clemson.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, Dewey.
Brutal.
And y'all should know your mascots. That was a test question when you got your job about the mascot.
We couldn't get the job on the Fan Upstate until we knew all of our mascots. I would never get the job because I'm not good with the mascot. Diesel is. I'm not. But that'll be fun. Make note of that, Diesel, that the first week, how many days do we get before the games actually start? 4 or 5? You get 2 play-ins, a couple of play-in days. So that'll be fun to put us to the test there.
There are 364 basketball-playing NCAA Division I schools.
That's a lot.
364. That's a lot. Crazy. Out of those 364, I feel like, Cole, I could get I feel like I could get like 200 of them.
Oh, my God.
250, maybe 250 out of the entire 364.
That'd be impressive. Impressive.
I mean, there might be whole conferences that I'd get wrong.
Yeah, but still, nobody knows. They don't even know their own mascot at those conferences.
True.
Dewey says no Cinderella. I mean, Dewey, look, to be fair, I said yesterday that maybe this is the year we get less Cinderellas because there are good teams out
What's
there.
the actual definition of a Cinderella? A team in the bottom half of the bracket making its way to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8?
Yeah, I don't think being Diesel, I don't think winning one game quantifies a Cinderella.
Like a 9 seed or lower reaching the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I think you got to go Sweet 16, right? I mean, you can't – one game? No.
No, winning one game doesn't constitute a Cinderella. I mean, it's a great story to for Furman to beat Virginia, for example, a great story, but that doesn't make them a Cinderella that year, no.
Before we get back to the Cinderellas, because I have a few more, and then we'll go to the phones. One question that I want – Dewey brought up UConn. Somebody on the Rich Eisen show earlier, they have like Rich and a couple of the guys, and they do a fantastic job, by the way, right here on the Fan Upstate from 12 to 3. They were talking about UConn. Did you hear the question that one of his co-hosts asked him? He said – 18-9 UConn Diesel, I believe. 10-6. They're not like elite.
Leave them out.
No, he said, do you think that Dan Hurley, now that Luka Doncic is a Laker, regrets not taking the Lakers' job?
Oh, man.
And now he's at UConn, and they're like okay this year. They're not really good. They're not really bad. They're not elite. But he's like, oh, yeah, that's not fair. When I interviewed for the job, y'all didn't tell me that y'all were going to go trade for Luka in 6 months. But I don't know. It's an interesting question. Does he regret right now today?
I think somebody should ask him in a press conference.
Shouldn't they?
Yeah.
I agree with that. That would
I didn't say, what the hell is wrong with you asking me that
Let's
question?
see. All right, today's the 25th. What's their next game?
Are you going to fly up to Stewart's?
I'm going up there. Let's see. The next game is tomorrow night. They're at home. in stores against Georgetown, classic blue blood. I'm going to ask him, Coach. By the way, great win tonight. But do you regret not, now that Luka, is a Laker? Do you regret not taking that job, especially if Luka and the Lakers beat the Mavericks tonight, right? At 10 o'clock, if he can stay awake for that one.
Yeah, I'm going to take a nap before that game to be able to stay up for it. 10 o'clock, that means it's not going to be over till like 11:30, midnight.
Coach Mitch on the YouTube stream says, the SEC's too powerful this year. Probably won't be too many Cinderellas. Well, I don't disagree. We'll see. Speaking of Cinderella, let's go to the phones where Tom in Somerville wants to weigh in on the conversation. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. Yeah, y'all hit the nail on the head with the Drake Bulldogs, okay? So let me tell you something about the Drake Bulldogs. They made, hands down, the best off-season coaching hire of any Division I basketball team last year. And the reason that is Ben McCollum, Drake's head basketball coach, is the next star in college basketball.
Really?
Now, you want to dive into his details. The man won 4 national championships at the D2 level, and I don't even think he's 50 years old yet. I'm pretty sure he coached at the high school level and was successful there. But here's a question for Diesel. Now, Diesel, I know you know your mascots.
I try.
But I want you to see if you can get this one. So Ben McCollum was the head coach at Northwest Missouri State, where he won 4 national championships.
Is that D2? That's D2, right?
That's D2. I don't know D2 mascots now.
Okay. Well, I'll
do
give
you,
that
Tom?
one. Well, I didn't until I remember so back when he was hired at Drake last offseason, his name kept getting thrown around for other jobs.
Okay.
So I did my research, and I found it based off of that.
Gotcha.
So I do know it now, but I didn't 6 months ago.
Hey, Tom, Tom in Somerville, is Ben McCollum now what Landon Powell will be 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a good comparison because you look at what Landon did at North Greenville, where it was just not much of a program, and then he gets there and they start winning. I mean, he's that type of program changing coach, and if you're a single digit seed and you have to play the Drake Bulldogs in that first round, that is not a team you want to face because McCollum. They're a fun team to watch, but he has tournament success. He's proven it everywhere he's been. So, you might see one of those 3 or 4 seed or 4 seed teams lose to a double-digit Drake, and I won't be surprised one bit. As long as they, make the tournament, which they should do it, if they make the tournament, I don't care who they're playing in the first round, I'm taking the Drake Bulldogs to advance into the second round.
You heard it.
You can save this audio because when they get in the tournament, whoever they play round 1 is going to be in trouble.
I like it. I really do. Tom in Somerville knows his stuff, man. He really does.
Appreciate the phone
Thanks
call,
for the call, Tom. Diesel, right now, Clemson, excuse me, got a little bit of a cough. My voice is shoddy. I can't say the other word. Shoddy. Right now, speaking of projections, Clemson is slotted in the latest NCAA tournament projections as of today in the ESPN projection, playing UC San Diego, and the CBS projection, also a 5 seed, playing 12 seed McNeese, and then in the JBR bracketology as a 5 seed, playing Diesel, the 12th seed, Yale. So I think that, by the way, CBS Sports had Yale, who's 16-6, 65th in the KenPom ranking. They have Yale as a team that could be a Cinderella. Remember, Yale upset Auburn last year. And they lost Danny Wolf, but they're still a good team. So I think what I said, Diesel, about there not being as many Cinderellas, I hope that's not true. Because we all love Cinderellas. We all love seeing teams.
People love Cinderellas to a point, right? They want to see Cinderella upsets in the first round, and after that, they want the Blue Bloods and the Brands to take over.
I want them through this. I want to see a couple of teams win in the second round. Maybe one Diesel in the Sweet 16, okay? One team in the Sweet 16. I mean, how cool. I know they're not a Cinderella, but who saw NC State's run coming last year? You know, I mean, they went on a deep run. And then, you know, they weren't a Cinderella by any means, but still an awesome story there. So it's going to be a lot of fun, man.
Big-time situation for Clemson right now. Cam Canarella up to bat with 1 out, runners on first and third. Cole, I'm watching the stats page. I know you're over there watching the live game, so maybe you can give us some updates on what's happening. We got Quentin Hall pitching for the Winthrop Eagles, Cam Canarella at bat. And we'll see if Clemson, they're already leading 8-3, but they could bust this thing wide open with a scoring shot right here. On the other side of the break, Cole, this whole Travis Kelce retirement thing just keeps ping-ponging back and forth. Will he, won't he? Chiefs GM Brett Veach is now weighing in on the conversation. And I wonder, Cole, if you were in Travis Kelce's position, what factors would go into making up your decision to go ahead and hang it up? That's next, right here on 97.7 The Fan Upstate in Greenville, 97.1 The Fan Upstate in Spartanburg. Cole, I think every man realizes he's old when he realizes he's older than every player he's watched playing his favorite sports.
Yes.
You know, when you're like, I'm reaching retirement age of every player that was my same age. Like, I still feel like I could go out and play professional basketball because LeBron James is doing it at 40 years old, and we're like 5 months apart.
Yeah, you can.
So I'm just like clinging on to that last little bit of youth, knowing that LeBron James is out there doing it. And when he retires, Cole, it's official. I'm an old man. It is what it is. But the question becomes, when it gets to retirement age, like, how would you decide that it's time to go ahead and hang it up? Barring money and barring a catastrophic injury. So you have to actively make a decision rather than having a decision made for you. How would you decide? Because that's what Travis Kelce is going through right now. Travis Kelce famously said before the Super Bowl, I'm coming back. I want to play another year. After the game was played on his podcast with his brother, he said, well, I don't know. I'm going to have to take some time to think about it. Obviously, he didn't perform well in that Super Bowl. He was kind of a diminished factor over the course of the entire season, but especially in that Super Bowl, Cole. Things did not go Travis Kelce's way. But now, Chiefs GM Brett Veach says that he anticipates Travis Kelce will return next year.
Oh, boy.
After Travis said that he didn't know what he would do on his podcast. So it's kind of just back and forth, back and forth. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? Obviously, Travis doesn't need the money. He's out there buying Taylor Swift $150,000 worth of Valentine's gifts. He's got all the money he's ever going to need. His family is set up for multiple generations, assuming they're not absolute idiots with their money. So money is not a concern for Travis Kelce anymore. It's not an injury issue. It's not like he just broke his leg and it's like, okay, you got to retire now, because nobody comes back at 35 plus after a broken fibula and gets back out there onto the field. So the question becomes, at what point would you say enough is enough? Like, what deciding factors would help you make that final, ultimate decision?
You hear people say a lot that the great ones in sports, the Tom Brady. I mean, how many times did Tom Brady go back and forth? You hear people talk about people and players knowing when it's time to hang it up. Some go too long. Some retire a little too early. But, Diesel, for whatever reason, there are some out there that just know the right time. They just know the sweet spot of when to hang it up. And I think it's so important to understand that you're right. It's not all about the money, but for a guy like Travis Kelce, he loves the game. He loves what he does. And you know what? When you love what you do, it's hard to hang it up. And for him, pride might be a part of it as well. He probably, I don't know that he is feeling this way, but I would assume that he probably doesn't want to go out like he went out last season, being a non-factor in the Super Bowl. So it's a tough question.
But what if you choose that route and your following year is even worse? It shows you I made the wrong decision.
Well, then it's time for sure.
I should have walked away, after going to the Super Bowl. Now my team went, 9-7, and I definitely should have walked away last year.
Well, if he follows up this year with a bad year, then there's no doubt.
Sure.
I mean, it won't even be a question. Tolos, you can chime in at 844-326-3663. TA and Gaffney wants to chime in on the conversation. What's up, TA?
Hey, guys. I hope you're doing well. Great show as always. Travis Kelce needs to retire. I could see at the end of the year, he's letting his hair grow out. That's totally different. His body, the muscle tone in his body was changing. I don't think he was working out as hard. And I hate to say it, but I'm just going to have to say it. I think it's the Taylor Swift effect that
she made him soft. Women weaken the legs.
Yes, and you combine those two people's money, and you talk about generational wealth. Oh my God!
Yeah.
And I just think that his route running got sloppy. He couldn't sit down in the zones. Everybody was saying, "Oh, Travis Kelce's a zone killer. That's what Philadelphia runs," and he couldn't get open. He couldn't sit down in a hole nowhere and get open. So I think he should just grow him a man bun and just get the heck on out, man. The guy's done. Stick a fork in him. He's like an old burnt hamburger. He's done.
TA, did you see the new? Did you see the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie, by chance?
I have not. I'm
okay.
sorry.
So it wouldn't make sense to you, but I think you're trying to turn Travis into Nice Pool, which is Deadpool but with a man bun, and he's always nice all the time.
That, you know what, TA, I'm with you. I think it's I think it was evident, and I don't know my opinion on it. I guess my take is, what does he have to gain from coming back another year, right? I think that's where he should be. What does he have to gain? I don't know that him coming back increases, how his legacy can be perceived. His legacy's already written.
Great.
And I don't think that's going to change. So I just look at it as, I think he has more to lose than he does gain.
Well, it depends on what drives you as an individual. Tom Brady was a competitor, number one, and 1A, he was a football player. So his entire identity was not wrapped up in being a family man, was not wrapped up at the time in owning teams, continuing to grow his businesses, et cetera, et cetera. His entire identity was wrapped up in being a competitive football player. And no matter how much older he got, he's like, I can use my method to be better than people who are still on the field and still doing it. So we saw that in the fact that it cost him his marriage. He was willing to sacrifice his marriage to a supermodel. Now, I've never been one to be like Gisele Bundchen is like the hottest woman in the world, but that's not the point. It's his wife
the thing is,
and the mother of his children.
He's a quarterback, and Travis Kelce, the problem is at the tight end position, you cannot hide deficiencies when you get older. You
Also,
can hide
you
them
get
at
scared.
quarterback because at quarterback, you saw Peyton Manning do it. You saw Tom Brady do it. They used their brain as the equalizer. They had a better football IQ, Diesel, than anybody. Those two did. And Travis Kelce simply can't do that. To TA's point, if he can't even get open in his own defense, that right there is your sign.
Well,
He doesn't have the physical ability anymore.
Who was the guest that we brought on about 2 weeks ago to talk NASCAR? He had like big-time NASCAR reporter.
Bob Pockris. And I wanted to ask him, and it kind of makes sense to ask the same question about Travis Kelce. Why is it that older, savvier drivers almost always tend to drop off? Like, you would think that the Jimmy Johnsons of the world would still be out there crushing it, right? Because really, what are they doing? They're pushing a pedal with their right foot, and they're shifting gears. They're pushing the brake pedal. Like, there's not as much physical drop off. It's cognitive.
In that. It's cognitive
for NASCAR,
It's cognitive, and I think there's some people start to develop a fear for their own safety later in their lives, like they lose that disregard, or they gain regard for their own safety. And maybe with Travis Kelce, knowing that he's playing a big time physical position, he's in his own head, and he's thinking too much, and he's losing that reckless abandon that has to make any NFL player a great player.
I've asked that too a couple of times to a couple of buddies of mine, Diesel, who are big NASCAR guys, because the top drivers that I grew up watching, the Jimmy Johnsons, the Tony Stewarts, the Jeff Gordons, the Dale Juniors, they're no longer in it. But if you see them on TV, you look at them and you say, look, they look great.
Sure.
Like, they look really healthy. Like, it doesn't seem like they couldn't. But I don't know. Again, every driver, every athlete's different. I don't know exactly what makes some retire. Jimmy Johnson finished third in the Daytona 500, last week. So I just think there's so many factors involved.
Where would he have finished before the big wreck?
12 to 15 probably, which is not bad.
It's not bad, but it's not good.
I do think, for Jimmy Johnson, I think that a lot of it has to do with how many of these guys now in NASCAR want to be car owners.
Yeah.
I mean, Jimmy Johnson.
Priorities change.
Their priorities are different. Junior's an owner, Johnson's an owner, so it's interesting.
Here's where it would land for me, Cole. Among other things, okay? This is just one of my three that I think would say, this is why I would make my decision. Does it feel like a majority of my time is focused on pain management rather than skill development? When I'm 22, 23, 24. I'm trying to develop my skills to be the best player I can be at my position. Well, once you take a whole lot of hits in the NFL and you've been in the league to the point that you're 35, those bumps and bruises start taking a lot longer to feel better. So if my entire life revolves around pain management over skill development, that's when it's time to go ahead and give it up. And you said about health there, these guys are getting more savvy and realizing, number one, they're making more money than they ever have in these sports. They can retire rich men at much younger ages. Some of them make that decision to go ahead and do it. We talked about it almost a year ago with Tua and his injuries, saying, come on, man, you're rich as hell. What are you doing out there? You keep getting concussion after concussion. Do you want to be able to pick up your daughter or son? Do you want to be spelling your name in blocks on the refrigerator with magnets?
You know, it's interesting with these different sports because every sport's obviously different. But I think when it comes down to football, you have a game that's still physical. I mean, we saw what happened with Damar Hamlin a couple of years ago, and I'll tell you this, I would love to know. People say, "Oh, you don't do it for you don't keep playing for the money. You keep playing because you love the game." Whatever. I'd love to know what that feels like. I'd love to know what it feels like to have $848 million in the bank and have to ask myself, with $848 million in the bank and a net worth of so and so million, do I really want? Because I can tell you right now, I wouldn't come back and play football next year.
That's why you got to be smart and go into a game in a profession where you can make a lot of money even later in life. Go be a pro golfer. These guys are still out there winning majors in their 40s and some even rarely, I get it, in their 50s. Then they can go on to the senior tour and keep making money on the senior tour.
Yeah, but if that money can't last you your life, that's a big problem. And unfortunately, it doesn't. I mean, it happens all the time.
You got to be smart. Number one, get a lawyer. Number two, get a financial guy that is bonded and will not steal your money.
I'd like to know. Shohei, you got to get a good gambler too.
You got to get a great interpreter. A trustworthy one.
Yeah,
for sure.
A lawyer and then a financial guy, then an interpreter third. That's the actual correct order. Daily Wire's Diesel, the top headlines in sports. That's next. Diesel, I am going to have to get a sugar-free Red Bull, 5-hour energy, something. I don't know what it's going to be, but, I do like the NBA. And the first Daily Wire is tonight. All eyes are on Luka. Why? Luka is playing his old team tonight, the Dallas Mavericks. It should be a good one. I wish AD was healthy. If Anthony Davis were healthy, you'd really see like the full trade, right? Exhibited Diesel, but AD's still dealing with an injury. I think the Lakers, last time I looked, are 9.5-point favorites tonight. So we'll see.
Do you think LeBron's going to cry being in a room with AD again?
No, I don't know. I mean, they had a close friendship.
Do you think AD's going to fly with the team?
I would hope so. I'd hope so. That's a good question. I don't know. That's good. 10 o'clock though. I'll have to. It'll be a struggle tonight. It'll be a struggle. Number 4 ranked Houston last night. Diesel. They continued their dominance with a 69-61 win over number 10 Texas Tech. Not a lot of talk about Houston. Kind of flying under the radar. We talk about Auburn, we talk about Duke, but Houston might be a legit team.
I think in a lot of people's minds, Houston is still a mid-major. They're not. They're in the Big 12 now.
That's bad.
They're the big boys.
Also in college basketball, top 25, Michigan, number 15, defeated Nebraska in a shootout. I'm kidding. 49-46.
Pillow fight of the week.
Wow, that's a doozy, right? Let's see. Utah. If you care about Utah, they have fired men's basketball coach Craig Smith. Just a basic white man name, right? After nearly 4 seasons, it was announced Monday, Craig Smith's gone. I'm sorry, but it's true. I'm sorry,
Matt
Craig.
Smith was the name used for the one white guy in the Key and Peele East-West game sketch.
Yeah. And this Clemson-Winthrop game is really, it's a lot of offense, so it's dragging by. It's just now the top of the 4th inning, and Clemson leads Winthrop 10-7 in the top of the 4th. So a lot of offense in this midweek game. The Washington Commanders have granted defensive tackle Jonathan Allen permission to seek a trade. 2-time Pro Bowler, really good player, but has a cap hit Diesel of $22.3 million. Washington would save $16.3 million in cap space, whether he's traded or released before June 1st. Seattle inquired about him. How about Jonathan Allen bringing his talents to Charlotte? I don't know if they can afford it or not, but
they basically spend their entire wad of cash on one
player. But let's do it. Let's do it. He's good. Let's do it. I'm all for it.
At least he's a defensive player, and they need defensive players.
They need defense, man. That'd be big. Worry about the salary cap next year, man. Put it off. Go get Jonathan Allen, Panthers, right? In Indianapolis, Penn State defensive end linebacker Abdul Carter will not work out at the NFL Scouting Combine this week because of a shoulder injury he suffered near the end of the Nittany Lions season. Carter's agents told ESPN Schefter that Carter's injury suffered in the Boise State win was one that they expect him to fully recover from. But interesting, Diesel, that here we are in February, almost March, still talking about this injury. I wonder if that's a point of concern for NFL teams or not. We'll see. Winthrop baseball, just mentioned, they're playing Clemson right now in a little midweek action. We talked to Derek Scott, the play-by-play voice of the Gamecocks baseball and basketball program, Diesel, earlier. They're in Missouri tonight, Columbia, Missouri, taking on the 14th-ranked Tigers. It doesn't ever get easier in the SEC for the Gamecocks.
No, it does not. And a little update for you. 10-7 is the score. Bottom of the 4th, Clemson leading Winthrop. 10-7, bottom of the 4th, Clemson at bat.
Also put this in the Daily Wire's tweet of the year I saw last night. Shane Beamer tweeted out a photo. They were at a award ceremony with Lenora Sellers. It was Marcus Freeman of Notre Dame on the left, Dabo Sweeney on the right, and Shane's son in the middle. And it was a great tweet by Shane Beamer. And I'll pull it up. That way I don't misquote it. But, Beamer's, he's good friends with all these guys, right? He's a man's man. And Diesel, the tweet said, big recruiting battle coming over the next 7 years for this young prospect. I think his mom will be key to the decision, so I like the Gamecocks' chances. But it was his son, who is a young fella. Let's see if it says his name here. I don't think so. I thought Hunter is his name. Pretty cool picture there with Marcus Freeman and Dabo Sweeney on the outside of you. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Could you imagine? I know we don't even know if Hunter likes football. I mean, I assume he does, but like if he's going to play football, if he's going to be good at football, he's little, right? Could you imagine the meltdown among Gamecock fans if Hunter Beamer became a Clemson Tiger? Come on.
Be great.
We've asked that question, and we've had several Tolos tell us that I'm a South Carolina fan. My kid goes to Clemson, so I have to write checks to them, or vice versa. And they've said, man, I don't like doing it, but if it's in service of my kid getting a great education, it's totally worth it.
It would be great. We'll have to ask next year, or this year later on when we get Beamer back on, we'll have to ask him about that and bring it a blast from the past. A new theme for the Dallas Cowboys. Diesel, last year it was all in during the offseason. And you know what they did during the offseason last year when they were all in? Nothing. So now the leaders, the Cowboys, are saying the theme this year is they are being selectively aggressive. It's not the all-in definition that Jerry used last year. So now we're going to be selectively aggressive when it comes to the off-season and what we do in free agency, says Jerry. I don't know what that means.
It's an oxymoron. It doesn't mean anything. It's like saying somebody is seriously funny or calling someone clearly confused, virtual reality, military intelligence, only choice.
You can just stick a fork in us.
Yeah.
We're so screwed. I hate it. I don't know what what are we doing here, guys? Jerry, Steve, selectively aggressive. We're going to be selectively aggressive in this offseason, says Steve.
I'm going to baffle them. What do they say? If you can't dazzle them with your intellect, baffle them with your BS?
Yeah, that's what we do. We're the best at it. Tonight in Spartanburg, actually about 20 minutes ago, first pitch underway between UNC Asheville and Wofford. 5:30 first pitch. UNC Asheville, Diesel, I called the only time I can ever say I called a game in the snow. I was doing play-by-play for an ESPN Plus broadcast with UNC Asheville several years ago, pouring down snow for a baseball game. How about that? A lot of fun.
Trying to see if I can get you a live stat on that game here. It's loading slowly, and I'll have it for you momentarily. Wofford is leading UNC Asheville right now 3-0 in the top of the
Wofford's
second.
good, man. They won the SoCon last year right here in Greenville. And by the way, Rob Jones, our buddy over at 98.9, our sister station across the hall, he did post this a few minutes ago on our website. Speaking of the SoCon in Greenville, let's see. The SoCon and Greenville have agreed to terms through 2027, so Floor Field keeping the SoCon tournament for a few more
Love
years.
It.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, Jets coach Aaron Glenn on Tuesday acknowledged that the team's decision to split with the future Hall of Famer upset some players, saying, listen, this is not going to be the last decision that I'm going to make that's going to upset people, but I'm okay. I love that from Aaron Glenn, right? That's what we want. I love that, dude. Those are your daily wires.
Texter says, no talk about Diana Taurasi retiring.
Yeah, she retired. There you go.
Is she a skier?
No, she's a WNBA player.
Kidding. When we come back, Cole, we started the show with it. Let's go back to the conversation. The tush push, the brotherly shove, whatever you want to call it. Should they outlaw it? There's teams that want it gone, removed from the game. Should it be banished forthwith from the kingdom of Rohan? We'll talk about that next.
run this play. No offense to Winthrop, but you can't slow down this Clemson offense. The lineup's dangerous. And, here's where you talk about midweek games not mattering. Clemson's probably going to win every midweek game they play. And, I know they play USC Upstate next week, and they'll have a couple, tough games. Maybe Georgia. They usually play Georgia. But the midweeks, man, I don't see Clemson losing midweek games right now.
Yeah. So we began the show starting about the TUSH push and the fact that the Green Bay Packers have now been revealed as the team that called for the ban of the TUSH push.
Pushing of the tush.
Eagles call it the brotherly shove. We got a couple of Tolos already jumping into the conversation. James says, personally, I'd rather the NFL go after a certain quarterback for his flopping to draw penalties during the regular season, but that's just me. Obviously, he's talking about Patrick Mahomes and his uncanny ability, Cole, to over-exaggerate a minor hit, make it look like a big hit, and then get penalty yards tacked onto it. Does he flop? Some, yeah, but I think Patrick Mahomes is the best at knowing exactly when to check up so that a defensive player is just going to run into him. The contact happened. Patrick is just that much better at it and willing to do it. Also, a cheap move. And that brings me back, and I will get to Dan's comment here in a second. That brings me back to the TUSH push. What Patrick Mahomes is doing is in no way, shape, or form illegal. Just as, by the current letter of the rules, what the Philadelphia Eagles, what the Buffalo Bills, and all the other teams that do the TUSH push are doing is not illegal. But it's cheap, right? It's cheap. It degrades the competition and the game that we're seeing on the field. It's not illegal. Just like we talk about sports betting a little bit on this show sometimes, Cole. Sports betting on game outcomes in South Carolina is illegal. But sports betting on somebody's stat projections, prop bets, is not illegal. So it's still sports betting. It's just not illegal.
So let me ask you this question, and any Tolos out there. Bunting in the game of baseball was not a common strategy until the 1890s, 1900s, 20th century. There were hundreds of years that went by where bunting wasn't a part of the game. Is it cheap? Is it, Bush League, I guess you could say? No, bunting is now used in a game of baseball referred to as small ball, where it's a tactic teams use to move base runners. In the same way, I think the TUSH push is a new tactic that traditional NFL fans aren't used to. And when people aren't used to something in life, what do? They say, we got to get rid of it, right? We don't like change. We don't like things to change on the whim. And Philadelphia, I give them a lot of credit because they came up with this TUSH push. They didn't come up with it. Minnesota actually did it back in 2018.
Rugby players came up with the TUSH push.
Yeah, rugby players did it. Philadelphia just absolutely perfected it at the NFL level. So my take, my side is I don't think you ban it just because people don't like it. If you told me it was dangerous, I'd be all for it. But there have been zero injuries related to the TUSH push.
Let's take another large major sport example and see how you feel about this one, Cole. No injuries, to my knowledge, ever occurred because of the Major League Baseball shift. But it was a defensive maneuver that greatly benefited the defense over the offense because you got a lot of players who are pull hitters. That's how they've learned to play the game. And you engage in a defensive formation that greatly changes the game in favor of the defense. Were you opposed to banning the shift in baseball?
I don't know that I initially had did it just get banned last year? Is that right?
Yeah.
I don't remember if I had a strong opinion either way. I kind of like the shift, but I know that people talk about it, and as you just said, it's manipulative in a way. I get it, but I don't think I really had a strong opinion.
I mean, I know that the simple answer that people will argue is if you want to beat the shift, learn how to hit the opposite field. It's really not that hard. Well, yes, no. You're also trying to learn how to do something that you haven't trained for your entire life against the best pitchers in the game. It's certainly a valuable way to beat the shift. And if you were exceptionally good at hitting against hitting into opposite field, then you would be able to beat the shift, and teams wouldn't put the shift on against you. That's certainly a fact there. But hey, I think the rules committee, well, the Green Bay Packers and the rules committee will ultimately decide. They want to decide if they want to let this become a much more pervasive element of the game, because you know as well as I do, if this play is allowed to continue and it's shown to be effective in key situations, that more and more and more teams will do it. And the NFL has the ability to affect the rules of their game to create the gameplay that they want. And I think it's cheap. I think it's like the example I made earlier. It's like playing Mortal Kombat with your little brother and beating him by sweeping the leg, fight's over.
So here's some interesting audio. This was the NFL put this out a couple of months ago. It was with Kyle Brandt and Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. And this audio, I had watched Dr. Tyson before on other videos. Look, I'm not trying to pick on him, but this just sounds manufactured.
No relation to Tyson Chicken, by the way.
No relation to Tyson Chicken. This just sounds like, no bleep kind of manufactured audio. But this is what the NFL put out on how Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson explained the TUSH push.
You live life with people going around asking you questions about everything in the universe. I'm asking you today, can we figure out a way to stop the Eagles at the goal line?
I don't know if I have a counter to it, but I can explain definitely why it works. When the Eagles line up for the tush push, everybody knows what's about to happen.
Him having the deep voice, let me pause it. It makes it so much more when the Eagles.
You've never watched any of his videos?
Oh, no,
before.
I have.
He's brilliant, and he
smart.
makes astrophysics accessible to the common man.
But we're talking about football, a simple game, and he's using his deep,
it's a game of inches,
voice
right?
About talking about. I mean, this is funny.
Just pause for a moment right here. Just pause. The Eagles have the advantage because they're hiking, and no one on the Chiefs can move until after the Eagles move.
Dr. DeGrasse, that's football. That's how it works. When you snap the ball, then the lines move. Thanks for pointing that out, but go ahead.
And so the Eagles get like a quarter-second head start in momentum transfer, okay? So the Eagles are already in motion. They are using Earth as a launch point for their movement. In fact, if you run the math on this, every time the Eagle runs this play, it slightly changes the rotation of the Earth.
Tell me more. Tell me more. Are you kidding me?
I'm just telling you.
Tell me more.
There's no way this is.
Is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
Right. That's what we said earlier, right?
Propel yourself forward unless something comes out the other side. As they are digging into the Earth, Earth is responding to them by having its rotation rate changed because they're bracing themselves against the rotating Earth. We don't think about it that way, but that's exactly what's happening here. That's where they get the traction.
We think about it that way now. That just blew my mind.
Okay. So now, if I'm on the opposing team, I want to jump over you. Because the quarterback is ready to come over. So I jump over you, and you know what happens if you jump over? You're no longer connected to the Earth.
Did you hear that? Newsflash, Diesel. And you jump, you're no longer on the Earth.
It's true.
If I get my doctorate degree, will I be able to say, when you jump, you're no longer on the Earth?
So what he's talking about here, Colin, is there more of this segment?
There is.
Okay, I'll let you finish.
Okay, it's not much more. Not much more.
The disadvantage.
Yes! If you're not connected to the Earth, you've got nothing to press against. And I know this because I used to wrestle. Okay?
How's that fit in?
Can I show you something real quick?
You want to show me a wrestling move?
The whole move. So we're here, right? Okay?
He's now holding Kyle Brandt.
So are you. Right? Until this happens. What are we doing? Oh, okay? I'm flying! When this happens, you got nothing. You have your body weight.
So he's talking about picking up Kyle Brandt.
So at the beginning of that, when he's talking about the Eagles knowing when they're going to snap the ball and getting a millisecond head start, he's talking about timing and leverage.
Yeah.
Which we all know that's absolutely true here, Cole. It's funny, we had Kane argue with Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that they've done the math on this. Now, mathematically, what he's describing here is infinitesimally small. It's a very, very minuscule amount. But
now Diesel's using big words like
correct.
Grass.
It's a mathematically minuscule amount of effect on the Earth's gravitational of the Earth's rotation. But he's not incorrect. Dan B says a top fuel dragster has the same effect. It has a slightly more effect, a greater effect than a human body does, just because it weighs more. But it's still also mathematically minuscule. But Cole, consider the fact that if you took an angle, like if you're looking at the trajectory of something, and it starts at a very, 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 very small angle, eventually that angle, once the object's moving away, once they get to a certain point, that's going to be a very wide gap. When you're talking about 100 feet from the point of starting versus 1,000 feet versus 100 million feet from where you started. Now you're talking about two objects that appeared to be on the exact same trajectory for a long time, slowly starting to drift apart. So I'm saying that to demonstrate the mathematically minuscule amount of effect that 22 guys standing on a football field have on the Earth's rotation, but it is scientifically there. So, all the mouth breathers and knuckle draggers going, nuh-uh, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're telling an astrophysicist that he's an idiot and doesn't know what he's saying.
It just sounds funny because everybody who's a football guy knows, like, yeah, we know that. Like, when you jump, you leave the Earth. Thanks for the news flash. But you use these big words, and it's like,
if he tried to explain it with big time words, people will go, I can't understand him. I don't like it. No, he's wrong. So he's gotta dumb it down for us, and he still say no.
Look, there's no denying he's a genius, but hearing him talk football, it is funny. It's funny. It's the science behind it.
I mean, can we appreciate the fact that this astrophysicist, and I don't know how many astrophysicists you know personally, Cole.
5, 6,
yeah,
7. I think.
Most of them couldn't give a rip about the physics of football.
No.
Here is an astrophysicist who has made a large portion of his career on explaining things to people and bringing the astrophysics side of things, bringing it down and making it conversational to the layperson. Him having genuine opinions about football, which should be so far below an astrophysicist even, plane of the things that he thinks about. I think it's great.
It's cool. I like hearing his explanation of it. It is funny though. I will admit it's funny. It's almost sounds like he's so smart sometimes, and explaining how the line of scrimmage works when the ball's snapped. Like, we watch football. That's kind of how it works. But you know what? Ultimately, the Kansas City Chiefs, 4 out of 5 times, they figured out how to stop it in the AFC Championship game.
This is a guy who can calculate where the comet that's supposed to hit us in 20 years can calculate exactly where it's going to hit, describing a game where grown men smash into each other.
Yeah.
It's
wild.
So it's great. I love Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is a national treasure. I don't give a rip if he never played football. Lonzo can suck at Russia when it comes to that conversation.
With Derek Scott. We're talking all things Gamecocks in the very next segment. South Carolina baseball, South Carolina basketball. Derek Scott is the play-by-play voice of the South Carolina Gamecocks in those two sports. And if you missed that interview, we'll have it for you next. Quick scoring update for you Clemson fans out there. And appreciate all you Tolos listening on this Tuesday afternoon. But we shift things towards Columbia, where we talk Gamecocks, baseball, and basketball with Derek Scott, the play-by-play voice of the baseball program and of the basketball program as well. And Derek, man, I heard in this post-game press conference, all Lamont Paris and company needed was some new shoes to get their first SEC win of the year. Is that right?
Who knew? Who knew it was as simple as, got to be the shoes. That was the line from Mars Blackman many, many moons ago, if you're old enough to remember Mars Blackman. But whatever it takes, man, just had to get off the snide and get into the win column. And now, as he told me earlier today, he said, instead of worrying about getting the first one, getting one, you just worry about the next one now. And he's hoping that relieves some pressure from his guys and allows them to play a little more freely here moving forward.
Derek, what have the interactions been like between Jeremiah Donati and the basketball program? Obviously, he doesn't want to come in and change everything Lamont Paris is doing this early. He just arrived on campus himself. But clearly there are conversations going back and forth. So tell us what that is like right now.
Well, I mean, first off, it's not like they bring the play-by-play guy into their conversations between the AD and the head coach. So I'm no expert in that regard, but I can tell you what I gather in talking to Jeremiah. He's not trying to tell Lamont anything about how to run his program. He's trying to listen and figure out where the pain points are and what he can do to help. And primarily he's looking at that from a budget standpoint, because I think you talk about NIL dollars, and that's what everybody looks at now. And if you're falling behind there, then you're likely going to fall behind on the court too in terms of wins and losses. And, that's what I'm hearing a lot of questions about is, okay, are we just not where we need to be in terms of what you have in your NIL budget? And if that is the case, what can we do, moving forward to change that so you can be more competitive, to target the guys you want to get out of the portal and try and make sure that you've got more depth and more guys that can get you, into the top half of this murderous league.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough league, without a doubt. Derek, you have had a front row seat to South Carolina basketball in 2024 and 2025. I know it had have been frustrating at times. You talk about the Auburn game, the Florida game, two really good teams, top 5 teams, where South Carolina, at points looked like they were the better team, and just unable to get them done. From your vantage point, could you pinpoint in your mind what exactly it's been over that long stretch that you guys went through that just was the catalyst that eventually got the Gamecocks over the hump, but was not allowing them to win those close games through the first part of the season?
Primarily, it's turnovers. If it was no coincidence to me that against Texas, South Carolina had its fewest turnovers of the season, 8. And when you look at the games when they've played their best, turnovers have been kept in check. But more often than not, they have gotten way too inflated, the turnover numbers and the percentage of possessions that end in turnovers in conference play. Until the last couple games, it was up nearly 25% of all possessions ending in turnovers. And you just can't win that way against anybody, let alone against, as you alluded to, top 5 teams. And when it got away from them against Florida, when they let that double-digit lead slip away, it was because Florida went to a full-court press out of basically desperation because nothing else was working. They're not typically a pressing team. And they immediately turned the game around by turning South Carolina over repeatedly and getting easy buckets as a result of that. And so that's really the most consistent issue. The offense has been a struggle really all season long, but a lot of those struggles come with the fact that not enough possessions are ending with a shot even going up.
Derek Scott, play-by-play voice of Gamecocks basketball and baseball. What's your secret, Derek, to staying positive versus being starkly honest, or I guess striking a balance between those two things through the frustration of covering a team that's struggled as they have?
I don't know that I'd say I've got any secret. I probably am too honest for my own good at times. But at the same time, you know how hard these guys are working and how hard they're trying. And I mean, that's the thing, when you see them competing as well as they have in, matchups with all of these top 5 teams. I mean, if you're into the net rankings at all and you look up and realize, I mean, tonight is going to be for South Carolina. This will be our 27th game of the season. And of those 27, actually, this will be the 28th game of the season, my mistake. So this will be the 28th game of the season, and it'll be our 15th game against a quad 1 opponent. I mean, that's just ludicrous. When you play over half of your games against the best teams in the country, then that is, that's just the deck's kind of stacked against you there. And so, knowing that and watching these guys and being with them on the road and seeing, how seriously they take it, how hard they're working and trying, you try and keep that in your head when you are frustrated with what you're seeing on the court. Sometimes you're, better at it than others. It's ironic that the last 2 games have been the highs and the lows. I thought the first half of the LSU game 2 games ago was the worst half of basketball I've watched all season. And I know myself and Casey were both pretty frustrated with it. But then you come back and you play, your best half of basketball in the first half against Texas probably all season. So, it's a sport. Both teams are trying to win, so you can't always be frustrated with what's going on with your team because somebody else is out there trying to get it done. And tonight that somebody is Missouri, who was in our shoes last year. They went over in the league last year, and everybody was stunned by it, but they have bounced back in amazing fashion and now are one of the, top 15 teams in the country.
Yeah, and without a doubt, it's going to be another tough one tonight on the road again. And talking about a good opponent for South Carolina, as Derek Scott is joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. When you look at the way that Lamont Paris's teams have kind of been developed and brought together, Derek, over the last 3 years, we talk about what they can get better at. Obviously, the things in the game are, the top of the page, the turnovers that you mentioned. But is there anything that you've noticed or that, that coach has talked about post-game or even to you that he wants to change in terms of the future of the program going forward in the next few years, whether it be the style of players he recruits, the depth the program needs, or anything in that realm of, in terms of just the big picture kind of things?
2 things I would say there. One, I know he wants to his style of play, he wants shooters. He wants guys that will knock down open shots because he thinks he can run an offense or get those open shots. And that's the one thing, one of the things this team's lacking. You don't have enough knockdown shooters on this bunch that, when they get open threes, you feel good about it going in. I mean, they're averaging less than 6 3-pointers a game in SEC play. And you just can't play that way in this modern era and be successful on a regular basis. The other thing that I'm not saying he's committed to this, but I know it's in his head somewhat, is thinking about the incredibly high level of physicality that is being played in this league and being allowed in this league. And I think on some level, I think LP's probably kind of thought about, okay, do we have to change, the style to some degree because of the fact that, what used to be fouls aren't being called a lot now, and you have to really, really be strong with the basketball. And at times, this bunch has looked a little bit maybe slight compared to its opponents in that regard. And, if that's the case, then maybe you have to think about that when you're recruiting and what kind of guys you're looking for in the portal in terms of, not just height, but also strength.
Derek Scott joining us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. He's the play-by-play voice for South Carolina baseball and basketball. Moving over to the Diamond side of things, where does it feel like this weekend's upcoming series ranks among recent seasons in terms of importance and what you think you're going to learn about this South Carolina Gamecocks team? They haven't really been tested to this point of the season. Pitching has been pretty good. Bats have gotten going a few times, but this will be their first foray into Division I competition. What do you think about this upcoming series against Clemson?
Well, I mean, they're all Division I opponents that we've played. So
sure, sorry, excuse me.
But I mean, it's a power conference team. It's a nationally ranked opponent, and that's usually how you size it up is, you ease into it and then be ready because, behind Clemson, you've got, the murderer's row of SEC competition. South Carolina, I think, is the only team in the country that is scheduled to play all 5 of the top 5 ranked teams in the country this year, the current top 5. And when you look at around those rankings, you're going to see those guys on a regular basis. So I think with Clemson, the fans get really excited for this rivalry. It's bragging rights. It's intense. It's, neighbors going head to head against each other so they can talk smack for the rest of the year. I don't know how much importance you can put on any one series, though, when you've got so many of them that are going to be against this level of competition, and this one especially being the first one out of the chute. If you're Paul Mainieri, I'm sure he's curious to learn more about his team and how they match up with a quality opponent. But I also know that he's a game-to-game kind of guy. He's not going to be putting too much on any one game. He's just been around too long and seen too much baseball to do that. I am curious to see how the pitching that has been so good so far, how that looks against a higher caliber of offense. And then I'm also curious to see, how you match up with some of those real quality arms that Clemson brings to the table, like, Canuck and so forth. I think it's always fun to get together for this series. And, especially understanding the way this thing was built back in 2010 to start playing it in 3 different venues over 3 days. I mean, it's a showcase, and everybody in this state who likes baseball or loves baseball, like some of us do, you just look forward to it every year just because of everything that goes into it.
What would you say, Derek, through the first 8 games or so that's different about the Paul Mainieri era compared to different eras that you've seen in previous years? Because it seems as if Paul Mainieri and the culture that's been created in this very short time is off to a fantastic start.
A couple things come to mind. One, in terms of style of play, they have been very aggressive running the bases, more so than I can recall any recent teams being. It has not been let's sit back here and wait on the 3-run homer. We're not going to play that way. The other side of it is just his experience in this game and him having been to the mountaintop. He knows exactly what he's looking for in every aspect of this operation. And I think that confidence is something the players recognize, and it relaxes them because, he's relaxed. He's not going to, push a panic button. He's not going to be dealing with a situation that he's not dealt with somewhere in the past, no matter what it looks like. And so I think that confidence and that comfortability in all circumstances definitely is felt by the players and allows them to do this, the very same thing.
Derek, I'm going to ask you one more personal question here. I'm going to ask you another secret of yours. How do you manage being such a road warrior, being on the road with the basketball team? As soon as baseball starts, you're on the road with them as well. I don't know about your musical proclivities, but the band Cypress Hill said being a rock star is a fun job, but it's still a job. And you are a rock star, being the voice of 2 different teams for a university. So what's it like managing just the stress and strain of being on the road constantly like that?
It's a juggling act. And what I always have to laugh about is a lot of people think this is my full-time job, and it's not. I mean, it's, like most in radio these days in this modern era, if you want to pay your mortgage, you may not be doing it as a broadcaster. So it's a side hustle. And so my real job at times has to take precedent over, dealing with that. And at the same time, when you're on the road like today, you're cooped up in a hotel room trying to make sure you're getting everything done that you need to for the real job, as well as, a broadcast that's coming up tonight. And then I was laughing earlier because when you're in the overlap season like this, you can't squander any time. So I was already thinking about, I've got to, probably got about a, 2-hour flight on the way home, and it's going to be late, but I've got to try and get something done either ahead of Friday's baseball broadcast or ahead of Saturday's basketball broadcast on the flight home, because there's just not enough time in the day to keep up with all of it this time of year. That's for sure.
Derek, it's awesome. We appreciate you talking a little Gamecock baseball and basketball for those in the upstate of South Carolina. We appreciate you. Best of luck on the call tonight, and we will talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, man. Take
Absolutely. Care. Derek Scott, the play-by-play voice of South Carolina baseball and basketball. Fantastic stuff And while he was talking about the Gamecocks, Diesel, I was watching on ESPN Plus the Clemson.
It's Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Just a couple of minutes left to go on this Tuesday edition of Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. Don't forget, you can always go back and relive something you missed or something you want to hear again on the free Odyssey app. Download it now. Sign in, create an account, and you're set up ready to go the next time we do one of those listen long time, win prize types of contests, Cole.
You win long time.
Well, yeah. But we've just experienced, Cole, maybe the dumbest thing people do in sports, which is bet on it and get caught. 3 Fresno State men's basketball players have been accused of betting on games that they actively participated in, and they all allegedly placed bets that their team would underperform on points and rebounds. Michael Robinson, Jalen Weaver, and Zayon Collins, all from the Fresno State men's basketball team, have been dismissed or put on some form of leave while the investigation happens. How dumb can you be to bet on your own team to fail?
You know what? If you're desperate, I understand it. If your kid is needing some sort of treatment where you have to, what's that movie where that guy goes and robs that bank for the kid that has the it's not like cancer, but he has some serious treatment and he has to go rob the bank and it splits his family apart. I can't believe I'm making a movie reference that you haven't seen. Anyways, if there was a legitimate excuse here, Diesel, it'd be one thing. It's not.
I'm blanking on this.
Yeah,
How do I not know? I know movies better than I know mascots.
Yeah, it's a good movie. It's
Fresno State Bulldogs, by the way.
Fresno State, Fresno, California. I got the location there. It's dumb. It's very, very dumb. I don't understand why you would do that, but again, unless it were a tire situation, it might be different. But that's dumb.
Are these players not like decent enough at basketball to just go enter the transfer portal? And maybe try to cash in on some NIL somewhere. I don't know. I have to look up and see how good Fresno State basketball record this year. Are Fresno State any good? No, they are not. They are 1-16 in conference, 5-23 overall. They've lost 10 in a row. Granted, some of that might have been due to point shaving and rebound shaving from these 3 particular players. Turns out it was the coach who actually discovered that they were gambling. Action News reported that Coach Vance Wahlberg actually discovered the gambling problem. Why would you? I mean, look, it's bad to gamble on sports when you're an athlete, regardless. It's surprising and shocking that we don't see this happen more often. But, I mean, if you're going to gamble on yourself to win, like Pete Rose. We all at least look back at Pete Rose and we're like, yeah, that guy cheated. He gambled when not that he cheated. He gambled when it's illegal to gamble. But he gambled on himself to hit the overs, right? Yeah. He always bet on the overs when he bet on baseball. So we kind of look, a vast majority, not the baseball writers, because those are all fuddy-duddies, stick in the muds, and they will never put him in. But like, bet on yourself to win. I don't get it.
And speaking of the over, Clemson Winthrop update for you. Clemson has plated 19 runs in the bottom of the 6th.
That's a football score.
Bottom of the 6th, 19-7. Clemson leads Winthrop. That game is dragging. It started at 4, and there's been a lot of offense.
Sadly, that would have been a 2023 Clemson versus Winthrop football score. Because Clemson was not scoring a lot of points in 2023.
And South Carolina, they first pitch, I believe, 5:30 for those guys. They have Gardner-Webb tonight. Gardner-Webb, that's an easy mascot.
Running Bulldogs.
Easy one.
My dad is a Gardner-Webb alum.
And Boiling Springs, North Carolina. Is that right?
I believe so.
Boiling Springs. You know, there's a Boiling Springs, South Carolina, and North Carolina. Let's see what the score is over there at Founders Park. These midweek Gardner-Webb. Just like Winthrop did, is Gardner-Webb's up 2-0 over South Carolina in the first. Winthrop took a 2-0 lead over Clemson, and things didn't end well.
Man, I'm nervous. Not so much about this Clemson game anymore, but the South Carolina game. I don't think that Gardner-Webb's going to pull out this dub, but I've got a sports spin in set to run tomorrow, where I talk about the undefeated Gamecocks.
Yeah, you already messed up on that once last week.
I messed up on that last week.
What was that? Clemson, Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
That's a couple weeks ago.
I said Clemson took care of business against Georgia Tech. I generally don't risk it for that kind of biscuit.
I did that with Ohio State.
But I think we've all been guilty of assuming something was going to happen, and then it goes the other way. And you have one of two choices: you wake up, get out of bed at 11:45 at night, launch your laptop, open up our Wide Orbit software, and kill the promo so that it doesn't run,
or you let it ride.
Or you let it ride and look stupid.
I'd get up. I'd get up. There's no doubt, because there would be somebody listening, that said, wait a minute. And by the way, another home run for the Clemson Tigers to add on to the lead. It is now 20-7, just like that. Clemson is all over Winthrop, bottom of the sixth, 20-7. That is a weird baseball score, but it is. So let's see who that was that hit that. It didn't show the replay.
Other than I can't imagine there's much money involved in a game like this. What's in it for Winthrop? You go and experience a big time ballpark.
Yeah, it's big midweek games.
What are you learning about yourself if you're Winthrop in their baseball?
Probably the exposure, maybe.
I guess.
Yeah,
it's really what it is. It's a chance for Clemson coaches to scout Winthrop's lineup to say, hey, is there one or two guys on that roster that we'd love to pick off for next year?
It's not a bad program, but last week they played South Carolina, and this week, next week, USC Upstate playing Clemson on Tuesday night over at Floor Field.
Well, USC Upstate has played Clemson before, and it hasn't gone well for Clemson.
That's true. Last year.
Was it last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
They played twice, and they beat them one time last year.
How about that?
Remember us talking about it. So, yeah, it's interesting, but it'll be a lot of fun. And a reminder, tomorrow's show will be cut a little bit short because Furman basketball is back in action, Diesel. This is the last week of SoCon, not SoCon tournament, but SoCon basketball. Wofford hosting Furman on Saturday.
Fun.
That's the last regular season game.
Is that a day game or a night game?
2:00 game. Yep.
On Saturday, so we won't be able to go because I believe, hopefully, fingers crossed, if it comes through, you and I will be credentialed to be at Clemson, South Carolina baseball.
I thought about that, and I was thinking, crap, I'm going to miss Furman Wofford. I was like, God, that's going to be a good game. Furman Wofford's always a fun one. I have to miss it, though. Somebody, you can't make all the sporting events, but it is what it is. Tolo's big show coming your way tomorrow, 5 o'clock. Fight as well tomorrow at 5 o'clock. We will see you then right here on the Fan Upstate.